All right. Thank you so much for everyone that's tuned in. Pretty sure people will be joining along the way. But today, just as a brief explanation, what we're doing, we are grading, ranking every American player season. Well, the relevant ones, but we try to cover every single one of them. Pretty hard to miss anyone out of this scope. And we're just going to be grading, analyzing, giving our takes on them. Do you want to be more brief about it as well, Braden? If you want to explain.
Yeah, so we're just going to be going through the leagues, going country by country, actually starting with the top division and second and so on to get through all of the notable and maybe some not so notable American players. I've got a list of 90. I'll share my screen in a bit. Just wait a minute or two for people to join. But yeah, that's all we're going to be doing today. And we just want to say again, thank you guys so much for 1,000 subscribers, an incredible milestone for us to hit. And it's only the beginning. We're going to have a lot of content coming this summer, streams almost every day once Euros and Copa America start, some Olympic content, U20s as well. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be a very busy and exciting summer.
Yeah, thank you very much again, guys. Just want to reemphasize how grateful we are for hitting this mark. For some of you guys, you have been with us throughout the entire journey since we had only 100 subs or less. We really, really appreciate that. So yeah, we're going to be going, and this time is a little bit different than the transfers video that we had, which was a little bit more complicated, where we had to rate the transfers and how they panned out, and it didn't really match what their performance was for club. Or this time we're giving our takes on the player season, really what it was up to them, what they did with the minutes they had. And yeah, it's going to be fun. We'll be covering a lot of players that were out of the mainstream scope, some players that don't really get talked about or are Olympic eligible. And yeah, it will be fun. It'll be quite long, but we thank you from this moment on already for tuning in. We really appreciate that. If you want to hit the like button, we really, really appreciate that. If you want to share with your friends as well, we'll be very interactive, responding to you guys on the chat, and it should be fun. Good
All
way to
right.
look.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
so I'm just going to share my screen now to show you guys the full list in all of its glory. I have it by name just because I think some of these players, if we put the pictures out, I don't think some of you guys or maybe even us would know who some of these players are by picture. So I have it by name just to make it a little bit easier. But here you can see we've got 90 players from a wide variety of leagues across Europe. You got the Sonora brothers from Argentina at the bottom and the Liga MX boys as well. But yeah, this is the list. And if we're somehow missing anybody, please let us know in the chat, and we'll be happy to talk about them as well. We're just to clarify, we're not doing MLS, USL, those kind of players, or there's even a couple leagues in Europe that are still mid-season. Since it's not the end of the year for them, we're just going to be leaving them out. Maybe at the end of the MLS season and USL as well, we can do a video recapping all the notable guys, the Olympic eligible players, and all the bright young talents. But for now, it's just going to be the ones who are playing abroad.
Absolutely. And should we get started? Should we wait for more people to join, Braden? Do you want to get straight into it?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So first up, we have Chris Richards. By alphabetical order, he plays in the Prem. That's the best league in the world. We're going to start with that one. Richards had a bit of a mixed season in the beginning. I think the first half was challenging, as it was before. I think he really benefited with Roy Hodgson leaving. He was a dinosaur. He got more playing time through injuries as well. But I think he solidified himself throughout the season. What do you think? How would you see his season as a whole, Braden?
Yeah, and I think I forgot to mention actually, you can see the list of players here, but as we scroll down a little bit, this is the full tiers. We got S, A, B, C, D, and F as usual. If you guys, like Gary mentioned, saw our grading the transfers video, it's the same tiers. But I think I would put Chris Richards in B, just because the first half of the season was pretty uneventful for him. He didn't have a lot of minutes. And when he did play, he was playing CDM, occasionally right back out of position. And it didn't look too great. Hodgson, like you said, the dinosaur kind of wasted the first half of the season for him and for the club. But once Glasner came in, the former Frankfurt manager, he just completely revolutionized the club and Richards as well. And Gehi's injury, I think, helped a little bit too. Going to that three-back system, Richards cemented himself as one of the locked-in center backs, and him as well as the entire team played well. So if we were just going based off since Glasner came in, it'd probably be an A, maybe even an S. But we have to go based on the entire season. So I would say B. What do you think?
I agree. I think if we had to break it halfway, we'd probably put A. Honestly, I think some people would put it in S, but I think B is just fine. It's fair. It reflects how his season as a whole went. Because even though it was really good at Palace, there were still some few dodgy moments here and there. But that's expected with the ring rust, as per se. If Beauty says come, all right, then comment. Thank you so much, Icy, for joining us. And you have Taylor Booth there in your picture. We're gonna get to him later on down the list. Right now, what do you guys think? We're going to place it on in B. I agree with you, Braden. It brings us to already one of the most controversial ones for the season, Gio Reyna. I mean, this one really tough because I think for USMNT, he showed up for us in Nations League when it really mattered. We really appreciated that as fans, but club situation, a lot of turmoil. Do you want to expand on that? Braden? What do you think was the best and the worst part of his season? Let's start with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best part of the season, like you said, was his USMNT performances because that was the only real bright spot, and it's nice to have that. But at the same time, for my criteria, at least right now, I'm ranking their club seasons and how they performed at the club level. So I think anything above an F would be unfair, to be completely honest. It looks like Ice says D, and I think that's fair as well. But I think ultimately he made the completely wrong choice with the loan move. Even staying at Dortmund probably would have been better. I think that going to Nottingham Forest was just bad for all parties. We've got Gus saying D as well. I think that's fair. I think yeah, D is fair. I guess F would probably be if he got injured or something like that. It's nice that for the first time in a long time he actually had a season that was injury free, which was, I guess, nice to see, but that might just be because he didn't get many minutes. So I'd put him in
Yeah.
F. D is fair as well. What do you think?
Yeah, I see someone else mentioned right now F on the comments. I think it would be between those two. I just have a hard time giving him an F. I don't know. I feel like for the USMT, he kind of kept where it was his safety nets. But yeah, let's put it in D. Honestly, it can't be any higher than that. There's no way, really. Especially, it could be an F if we try to focus on how it was off the pitch as well with the change in agency. I don't think that's to blame, but the agent that he switched to and the way that they went about it, honestly. Oh, and thank you very much, Ala. Really appreciate it. We're gonna get to Tanner and Gianluca Buzzi later on and the list, but thank you so much. That was a very nervy game, but happy that both Americans played their part. They really did well. Really nervous game, but it doesn't matter. We got promoted. Really appreciate that. But yeah, back to the list. I think that Gio and D is fine. I think the comments somewhat agree. One F, which is fair too as well. S27, I think it's fair. But now we're gonna move on to a player that maybe is another shout for an F. Really, at the beginning of the season, just to recap, when Matt Turner made that move to Forest, I think everybody unanimously thought it was a good move because he was going from a bench player, showing ambition, going to Forest. It seemed to be the perfect move for him to be a starter there. Things didn't turn out how it was planned. What do you see it, Braden? Do you think it was really down to him? Do you think the club always had in the back of their mind to sign another player, or did he lead them to that choice of having to choose another player?
Yeah, you can see a few F returners in the chat, and I think that's fair. I think just the fact that he had his chance to start, he was given the role immediately for the season, and the fact that he lost it to not one but two different goalkeepers, I think just shows that it has to be an F. I like the fact that he was ambitious at the beginning of the season, leaving Arsenal, joining Nottingham Forest, and trying to get a starting spot in the Premier League. I think, like you said, we all thought that would be a good move. But a week later, they signed Vlachodimos, and then in the January window, they signed Sells. None of them were good. I mean, we've spoken about it a lot now. But ultimately, due to the level of play, and now the fact that he's probably going to be going down to the Championship if he wants to start at all, and it's very tricky for goalkeepers because it's the position where there's the least market for because every club wants to have their goalkeeper and are very reluctant to sell. So I think it's going to be a very difficult summer for him and a very interesting one. I would put it in F personally. You could argue maybe D just because he did get a lot of minutes and he did get his opportunity, but the fact that he didn't capitalize on the opportunity, I think it's an F. It's a nightmare season.
It has to be an F. I completely agree with you, and not only because of the move, but also just how it turned out. Because he had opportunities, he did have a few opportunities, Turner, even after being dropped. And I think you're already scrolling. Yeah, there it is. I think it has to be the first F, and it's not even close. Like Gus Hibbold said there, reading some of the comments. What shampoo do I use? Um, I use Tresemme. Is what my wife gets in. It is what it is. But thank you, I appreciate that. Uh, oh, thank you, Allah. Again, buy Tresemme. You can get it even at 99-cent store before they closed. You can get a Dollar Tree. So not hard that one, but yeah, it has to be a bad move for Turner there and F. And hopefully you're right, Henry. Hopefully we win Copa America. We're gonna need Turner to step up for that. Hopefully it's a huge contrast from how the season went. I think unanimously with you guys in the chat agree it has to be an F. Bringing us to another player that made a move as well, move to stay in the Prem, Tyler Adams. He was relegated with Leeds, although he was a huge part of maybe why they got relegated because he was off the pitch with that injury. And he stayed in the Prem, unlike Leeds, moved to Bournemouth. Tough season for him with a lot of setbacks with the injury, a long time away. Came back in the Leagues Cup game, if I'm not mistaken, played 30 minutes, re-aggravated the injury, came back for the US, played, and it's now a bit in the dark. We're left in the dark, but how do you see his season, Braden? Where would you grade? This one is a really tough one to grade. Another F. Maybe harsh there, RC, but I see your point. I think it's there's argument for that. What do you think, Braden?
Yeah, I think definitely not a good start starting out with these three players. Richards was a nice one, but I think it's a similar situation to Gio, just because he wasn't playing at all, but obviously due to different reasons. I think the fact that injuries are out of his control, the Gio situation was under his control. I think you'd put it higher, which is kind of why I was campaigning for Gio to be an F, because I do think this is a D season for Tyler Adams. I would classify it higher than Gio, but I don't think I can put it any higher than a D. A couple of people saying C in the chat here. Low C because he did all right when he played. That is true. His one full game against Everton, he won man of the match, which was nice. It was encouraging. But the fact that he couldn't stay fit for more than one game once he was supposedly fully back healthy is a little bit concerning and a little bit worrying for this summer as well. Luckily, we have Johnny Cardoso to come in, but true. Besides that golazo he scored for the USMNT, F, yeah. I mean, if you're gonna count that, maybe it goes up to a C, but I think for club level, I'd put it at D. What do you think?
I agree. I think even though I agree with you guys that when he played, he did all right. But again, there has to be some merit in staying fit. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case with Tyler. We can pinpoint to his club for not managing the minutes restriction like we did for the USMNT, which Greg didn't really do as well. Has to be a D. If we're considering USMNT, I'll bump him up to a C minus, like some people said. But yeah, it has to be a D because ultimately, the guy couldn't make 5 games in the Prem. Really, that's not what we expected at the beginning of the year. But going from 5 games to almost every match, we have probably the most consistent USMNT player we have, Jedi Robinson. Tough one right here. I could see an argument for S. I would personally put it in A because I think it just solidified once again. He's a great player. If he does end up, well, I don't know. It's a tough one. Where would you grade him, Braden? What do you guys think in the comments? I think it is an A because it didn't really bump him up to another level, in my opinion. But yeah, an S is perfectly fine as well. Completely get that. What do you think, Braden? Where would you grade it?
I agree with Austin. I think the fact that he was easily our most consistent player. I think if you look at the peak, there's players who were better, like maybe McKennie at times. Pulisic at his peak had some incredible games, but over the course of the entire season, I think it has to be an S, just because I can't really pinpoint one game where he was shocking or made a crucial mistake. I think A, but S if it helps him move. That's fair. I think there are concerns whether Fulham's a little bit too low of a level, but mid-table Prem is a great level. I think Fulham are a very stable club, one of the most stable in the league, I would say, especially when you consider a couple of years ago when they did get promoted. I think it was back 2019, 2020. They bought a bunch of players and went straight back down. The fact that now they seem to be a consistent Prem club in mid-table, don't really have any danger of going down. I think it's a great situation to be in. And if he did make a step up to some of these big clubs that we've seen linked, like Liverpool, Chelsea, I'm just a little concerned as to where the playing time would come from. So I'm going to put it at S. I think he's in the perfect situation. I think he had an incredible season, has a very good argument for Premier League team of the season. I mean, I think we all know that's the best league in the world in terms of quality. So if you're up there in terms of a team of the season spot, I can't see anything besides S.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly fine. It's really fair as well. I see. Definitely A definitely, but I can see S. He the best player on Fulham could be on the move. Yes, I think I agree with the point that Massimo brought up. If it helps him get a move, I think S is it's very fair to say because that would propel him to reach newer highs in his career so far. To now onto his Fulham teammate, the late bloomer Tim Ream. Last season he had one of the I think the best season of his career. Pep even said that if he was younger, he would be signed to City. This year was a little bit tough. I think that the past 2 months he played a very sporadic role. So tough one for Ream. I will say maybe this is harsh, guys. Let me know, but I think C. I would put Ream in C because ultimately it was a step down. It was always meant to happen because he's older. But I think it goes to a C. Nothing great, but nothing bad. He cost them a few goals here and there, but still, for the USMNT, he was great against Mexico. And Matt Turner, no games played, but Tyler Adams D with the same situation. So let us know, Saul. Would you rank them both in F, both in D? And what do you think, Braden, about Tim Rain? Do you agree with me on C there? I don't know if I'm being harsh or not, but I would just grade it there that way.
Just quickly, I brought up Saul's comment because I wanted to address this. I had Turner personally below Adams because Adams' lack of games was kind of out of his control with the injury thing. Yes, maybe he did get brought back too early, and you can blame that on him. You can blame that on the club, on the USMNT as well. But for Turner, he had his chance and deservedly lost his spot. So that's why I would have him below. It's not like Adams had a couple of games, was horrible, and then got benched for the rest of the season, which is basically what happened to Turner. As for Ream, I think a C is very fair. First half of the season, he was playing pretty consistently. Second half of the year, not as much so. He kind of got benched, lost his spot, but I think that's to be expected. He's a locker room guy, their vice captain at the club, just behind Tom Kearney. He captained whenever he played, and I think a C is fair just because the first half of the season was probably a B level, maybe C, I guess you could argue. Second half, maybe a D. I think overall averages out to a C, and the fact that he's such a good leader as well gives him some bonus points. We see Ice commenting Cavan starting for Union 2. Yes, I will definitely be watching that game. It starts in about 40 minutes or so. We'll probably still be live, but I'll definitely have it on in the background to monitor that situation. Let's see. Anything else in the chat? We've got C, but that's being kind, to be honest. Yeah, I agree. I think if you look at the fact that he was benched for basically half the season, maybe you could argue lower, but first half wasn't that bad. Respectable C, in my opinion. Yeah, I think a C is pretty fair.
Yeah, I think it's a consensus we've come to, and Reem got to see, but let's be honest, he's done for. We need better for Copa in the future. Hot take there, Massimo. I don't know if for Copa we're gonna have better, but for the future, yes, I think that illusion that maybe some of us, myself included, had that maybe he would be there for 26. It's that ship has sailed out. I think we will need someone to step up by then. And thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. We're so happy to see so many of you guys join. Really, really appreciate that. Now we're going to move on to the next player on the list, Braden. Let me see right there if you can scroll it up for everyone to see. Now we're going to have Auston Trusty, another center back, talking about players that can step up. Well, step up he did not this season, but that was also you can pinpoint to his team, Sheffield, in my opinion, one of the worst sides ever in the Premier League this season. But Trusty wasn't particularly good either. Thank you, Greedy. Thank you very much for letting everyone know to like the stream. Yeah, if you guys can do that, we would really appreciate it. And Trusty is a tough one. I would personally put it in D, really. It got relegated. It could be an F, too. I think this one's tough. I think you can only sugarcoat so much and pinpointing to his club because he didn't really have any outstanding performances either. Do you agree, Braden? Do you put it higher because of the future, perhaps? Where do you see him?
I agree with the chat. We're seeing a couple of C's in there, and I think that's accurate. The fact that he became a solidified starter in the Premier League and got that valuable experience to be playing against some of the world's best week in, week out, there's a lot of growing pains, to be sure. One of the worst Premier League teams of all time he was playing for, and you can't ignore that. So I think if he was a starter on any other team, it would have been higher. But the fact that he played almost every minute this season, there was at the start of the year he was a bench player, but then there was a pretty bad injury to one of their center backs. I don't remember who it was, but yeah, he basically ended up getting the spot in the starting lineup and didn't look back, for better or for worse, I guess. And like you said, next season, this isn't really part of the ranking because it was for this year, but next season I think you'll have a huge bounce back. I'd put it at C. D is fair, and like Greedy said, you got a lot of valuable minutes. That's mainly the reason I wouldn't have it lower.
Yeah, I think C is fine, especially looking at the future. Let's be optimistic on this one. We need someone to step up for the center backs, and yeah, he's at a club in England right now that's going to be playing the championship with a high chance of coming back to the Prem. Got the minutes there, so yeah, I think C is fine. Maybe D's too harsh. Now moving on to another. Let me see. Make sure to donate money and like and subscribe. Thank you, Allah. Well, it's completely entirely up to you guys if you want to donate or not. The biggest goal right here is for us to just interact, have this moment. It's a bit of a celebration of the 1,000 subs. So now moving on right here, but the likes, we do appreciate the likes. If you can do that, that would be great. Moving on to the second division where we had Josh Sargent. Again, a lot of injuries this season, but outstanding performances. Maybe he did prove that he outgrew the championship. I would personally like to see him get a move. But yeah, he put himself back in the mix as well for the nine conversation. At some point, he was kind of forgotten about. So I would put it in A. I couldn't put it in S because they didn't get promoted. So I think A is fine. I could see an argument for B as well if we're looking at the injuries. Where do you see this one, Braden?
I'd put it at a low A, like Austin said, just because the first half of the season he was out for a while, and I think you do have to factor that in, and especially the fact that he had a lot of nagging injuries towards the end of the year that had him maybe not playing at his highest level. He missed a game or two. He ended up missing a USMNT camp because of that as well. So we're not sure if he's fully fit even for this summer. But yeah, I think I'd put him at an A just because whenever he was playing, especially in the second half of the season, he was scoring almost every game, crucial to Norwich getting up and becoming a playoff team. I think before he came back, they weren't even at that level. So the fact that they solidified a playoff spot ultimately ended up losing in the semifinals, unfortunately. But I think that's to be expected with the team they had. If they had gotten promoted, regardless of the injury, it would have been S. Definitely agree with that. But I think A is fair. Rob saying he wasn't high on Sargent last year, but he balled out, stocks up. Definitely. I think he's one of the players that you can look to have the highest stock after this season, or highest raised, because like you said, at the end of last season, I don't think he was really on anyone's radar for potentially starting for the USMNT and making the Copa America squad, but now he's 100% in those conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a shame that he didn't get promoted. I think Norwich were very underwhelming this year compared to what they usually do. And yeah, if he was fit, it would have probably happened. So yeah, Sargent had to be an 8. Good point. He's back in the mix to start. Yeah, as we said, he put himself back in that conversation. That already shows how much he did and the quality of the goals that he scored too. I think that perhaps for our system that we play with Greg, he would be the starter. But that's topic for another time. And yeah, possibly Golden Boot. Oh, I think 100% sure. If he was fit, he would definitely be definitely be up there for the Golden Boot, I think. Now moving on right here to another player that was in the championship, and I think maybe he's the surprise, the pleasant surprise of the season. Haji Wright moving from Turkey, from Trabzonspor, going to Coventry, and he took some time to adapt. But what a season he had! Had a dream run in the FA Cup. I would put it in S tier, just from what I think people rated Haji before the season and what he ended up doing. I think has to be S. Got that memorable run, goals against Wolves, against United. Could have gotten an assist that would have pushed him to the final, and yeah, got to the promotion playoffs as well. I think, got near to that, near the promotion. So, props to Haji. I'll put it in S, and he clutched it up for us in Nations League. Do you agree, Braden?
Seems like the chat agrees, and I have no arguments with that. I'd put him in S. Like I said, got robbed of a FA Cup final. Yes, that was horrible. They should have won that game. Man United were undeserving, but they ended up winning the FA Cup, beating City. So I guess you can give them props for that. It would have been cool to see Coventry though at that level. Although let's be honest, it probably would have been a repeat of the Man City Watford game from a couple years ago that they got battered 6-0 in the final. That probably wouldn't have been great to see. But yeah, Haji, incredible season for Coventry, making them even a threat to get promoted. Unfortunately, they ended up missing out on the playoffs. I think a bad run of form towards the end of the season didn't really help them out with that, and they started off the year slow as well. But you can argue maybe that's because Haji wasn't playing his preferred left wing spot. When he was playing, he was fantastic. One of the top 10 attackers, I would say, in the championship with ease, maybe even higher on the list. I think he's more than good enough to get a move to a top 5 league club. Whether that'll happen, I think I've said this before. I wouldn't want it to happen just because I like what he has going with Coventry. I think they have a good chance of getting promoted next season if they keep this team, but I think it has to be an S. What do you think? And also, just this guy, I don't know how to say your name, but saying that you shared the link to the stream in the USMNT Discord. Thank you so much for that. We
Appreciate
appreciate it
that.
a lot.
Yeah, I'll call him Uberks. Thank you, Uberks. Appreciate that. I also appreciate it right here. The first super chat. Really appreciate it, Henry. Thank you very much. So happy to see all this contribution and all of you guys again on the comments. And I think it's a consensus on this one. S tier for Haji. No arguments about it. Moving on to a player that doesn't really get talked about, Duane Holmes. All funds go to a move for Reyna. Oh, yeah. Or maybe to help him try to break away from his father. I know that dads always want the best for you, but I think that influence didn't really help him, especially moving to the Prem this season to Forest. But anyways, moving on to Duane Holmes right here. Doesn't really get talked about. Had a really hot streak at the beginning of the year, and I think this guy won't really realistically play for the USMNT again unless he moves to MLS and plays at a Gold Cup or something like that. I would put it in C tier. I think it's just fine. Kept his level there, which is respectable. Had a good run. Could possibly have been called up earlier in the year, but I don't think it was ever going to happen. Nobody really talks about Holmes. Do you think he deserves a C, a D? I don't know. In chat, let us know. Do you guys keep up with him?
Yeah, like you said, one of the most under the radar players. We're seeing a couple of C tiers in the chat. I think that's fair. If you were going based on the first half of the season, I'd put him in A. He was incredible. Preston North End as a whole, as a club, were incredible. They were up towards the top of the table, fighting for a playoff spot. But the second half of the year, they tailed off a little bit. Holmes picked up a month or two long injury that I think kind of derailed his form. When he came back, it was clear he wasn't the same player. But still finishing the season with 5 goals and 6 assists is respectable. I'd personally agree with the chat. I think C, as Henry says. And Henry, thank you so much for the super chat as well. Huge moment for us as well, our first ever super chat, and that you've been part of the channel for so long now. So thanks for sticking with us for so long. And yeah, I can't express
Yeah.
the gratitude enough.
Thank you very, very much. Really appreciate that. I think the chat agrees. See, let's move on from Holmes. Sadly, I think that's just what we have to do because he's not that relevant. But props to him. Moving on to another player that perhaps isn't the most talked about player, and I would just put it in D really for Lynden Gooch. I don't know why he even left Stoke City. Honestly, didn't have a bad year last season. Uh, Started the season kind of in and out of the squad, played well, but I think just based on his stock where it was at the end of last season, where I thought maybe he was an obscure choice for left back, we had the emergence of all these players and how he played the season. I'll put it in DC. It's fine. Another guy that doesn't really get S on name alone. Oh yeah, yeah, probably one of the best names out of the entire possible squad. Do you agree, Braden? Do you think D is being harsh on him?
I think I'm sad with this one because I really like Lynden Gooch as a player. Like you said, I don't know why he left Sunderland to go to Stoke. Maybe the playing time wasn't there. They had a lot of dead wood to sell. He was one of them, but he was such a beloved player. I mean, you see all of his comment sections, and the social media still posts him whenever they can. I think it's definitely a shame because he was a fan favorite there. They all want him to come back to the club. Massimo saying D because he fakes being British and has a weird accent. That's valid. That's a valid point. And honestly, based on his performances on the pitch this year, a D is justified. He got a lot of minutes, which was the goal when he left, so I think that's good. But the performances, Stoke City struggled a lot this year, and he had a couple injury issues as well, a little bit more than Holmes did. Ended up playing around 30 games or so, which is an improvement on what he would have been at Sunderland. But honestly, I'd rather him just stay at the club and become a cult hero there as he was. So I would say D is pretty fair.
Yeah, I think Icy and Massimo said that he fakes being British, so I think that's good enough reason to put him there already. Moving on to Reggie Cannon, who unfortunately got dunked on by Josh Sargent in their only meeting there. Moved on, honestly, respectful move, and probably he's getting paid now as opposed to when he was in Portugal. So props to him on that. But overall, I think a C level is fine. I think it was a step up in level. And do you guys see Yao going to the Netherlands or Bundesliga? I see Massimo saying that he should move. We're going to get to Yao later on in the list. Definitely raised his stock and is one of the best options for our Olympic squad. But I think that, yeah, answering your question, I think that it could happen. It could happen. He will most likely stay in Belgium for now. I think he mentioned Club Brugge wanting to move to a bigger club there. I think it's a good step up, realistic, but it wouldn't be a surprise, really. When Yao balls out in the Olympics, you'll get interest. Yes, I agree. I think he'll play really well there. Reggie, in my opinion, gets a C. Do you think that's being harsh, Braden?
I says D, and I completely agree. The fact that he's at least getting his wages now makes it not an F because I mean that's what you play for, right? It's your job, you want your money. But I do think based on his performances, it has to be a D. He did start initially when he joined them in January, which was nice to see, but he kind of lost his spot to Jimmy Dunn, who had a lot of good performances towards the end of the year. And ultimately, I think Jimmy Dunn at the right back spot. A lot of people probably don't follow QPR, and honestly, I can't blame them. But he was one of their best players and got them out of the relegation zone. I think it's notable that when Cannon was playing, they were down towards 22nd, 23rd, in huge danger of getting relegated. Ended up finishing the season out in 18th. And a large part of that was due to some of the squad changes they made towards the end of the year, one of them being Reggie Cannon getting dropped. So I do think it's a D just because he had his place, similar to Turner. He had his place and then lost it. Massimo was saying he didn't even know he exists anymore. Can't blame you, honestly. His drop off has been sad to see. Norwich cooked him. Yeah,
Yeah,
Sargent dunking on him was an iconic moment.
it was. It was a nice goal by Sargent, but yeah, I think D is probably fine. I think that's what the chat's saying, and I really can't really argue against it. He's probably the player that I watched the least out of all the ones in this list that are watchable, obviously. So yeah, I think D is fine. Now we're gonna move on to the next player. As you guys can see, it's Ethan Horvath. I'm gonna say a B season for him. I don't know why Forest didn't rate him at all because they brought in three goalkeepers, and arguably you could make a case that Horvath would have been better than them. He's more proven in England than all of them, and honestly, it's just sad that he's never going to get a shot as the starter for the USMNT. I think he had a good season in Cardiff. As soon as he got in there, got a clean sheet, got good playing time, regular playing time, which is better than Turner, really in that way. But yeah, I think Championship is just about his level. It's sad to see that he's never going to outgrow that. I think he won't, but he's kind of completed the championship twice. I think B is fine because the first start of the first half of the season was horrendous, not even including match day, but did play well when he got the chance. What do you think, Braden? Would you agree?
Austin saying he's asked the teams don't know his aura yet. His aura is weird. He looks and sounds like an AI generated player.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't know
he's
what it is.
Chat GPT. If Chat GPT was supposed to be a goalkeeper, I think it would be Ethan Horvath. I mean, I like the guy, but looking at his interviews, I know who I don't want on my team talk during halftime. But yeah, yeah, that's maybe his aura is just not known yet.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with Greedy here. C plus B minus. I would put him in C just because, like you said, first half of the season was absolutely horrible. Not his fault by any means, but he wasn't even registered, got 0 minutes. That's a huge detriment. The fact that he does have a consistent club now is a great thing, and I think pushed him up because the first half of the season was an F. There's no other way to put it. But the second half of the season, I'd put it up at a B. His performances were good, not great, I'd say. He had a couple shaky moments, a couple really nice saves. Overall, I'd average it out to a C, but next season will definitely be a lot better since it's his first full year at Cardiff.
I agree. I think that honestly, I think C is probably the fairest one because I did look over that fact that he didn't play for the entire half of the first half of the season. So agreed there. I think B because he played well and is better than Turner. Oh, that's a hot take. Some people won't really let us know, chat, as we move on to the next player. Who would you start? Well, not who would you start, but who do you think is better? Because we know Turner's going to start regardless. But that's a hot take. Moving on to Daryl Dike. Daryl Dike, I mean, I would just be brief. He should sadly make use of his full ride that he got in college and start using his degree. Perhaps it's harsh, but Dika can't stay fit, and I rate him when he plays, but it has to be F for me. It's another season just thrown away, thrown in the trash, really. And he scored a goal when he came back, but the guy, sadly, it's heartbreaking, but really, but I'm gonna put it in F, in my opinion. Prep Gaga for the future, yeah, and he got some of that preparation. We're gonna get to him not too far from now, so stay tuned for that. But for DK, I think I would just be brief. F. What do you think, Braden? I think there's any way to put him above?
Has to be F. And like you said, it's heartbreaking because you just have to feel bad for the guy. His luck with injuries, especially for someone who's so built and so athletic, such as him, it's really unexplainable. Maybe it's something to do with his stretching, his pregame treatment, or maybe he's just an unlucky person. But it has to be an F. He came back, played 5 games in all competitions, scored a nice goal in the FA Cup against very, very inferior opposition. Aldershot Town of, I believe, the National League. Yeah, the 5th tier in England. Greedy saying F for fitness. That's fair. F for lack of fitness, we'll say. Henry's saying F, he's done. He's a bodybuilder. We can't stay fit. Definitely true. I think after Akinfenwa retired, he became the strongest player in FIFA. So at least he'll have that as a career achievement. And he did play well for Barnsley a while back when he was still healthy. But I think his career, at least in England, is all but over. He should probably just come back to MLS now. It's very unfortunate. Austin saying he's at least a D, maybe a D for Daryl Dike, both initials. His name's too legendary for F. That's a very valid point, but I think F is probably fair.
Yeah, I think a lineup with Gooch and DK would be definitely S tier, but yeah, we're gonna have to put him F. Jokes aside, I think it has to be F. Sadly, I agree with you guys that uh, honestly, poor guy. You have to feel bad for him. But we're gonna move to Donovan Pines, another one that didn't really get talked about. He's a giant. I don't know how tall he is. He's 6'7". He's one of the tallest players I've seen, at least when I've tuned in. Was over at Barnsley, got the move, did fairly well when he was there. I think struggled with some injuries here and there. I think honestly C. I'm gonna put C because frankly I haven't really watched even 2 games. I watched one full game from Donovan Pines and he was good in that one. But yeah, I think it's fine. Do you agree with that one, Braden? Or do you see him ranking higher, ever having a chance? And yeah, he was balling before he got injured. He was. Just sad that our players, man, sadly, I feel like they're all made out of glass, sadly. But yeah, let us hope that that improves. But has to be a C for me. I think a good step up. But what do you think, Braden?
Austin saying the only Donovan I know is Lynden. Yeah, but at least Donovan Pines is patriotic, unlike Lynden these days. So I'd give him the props for that. Like you and Ice said, he's saying it's a U.S. healthcare system, man. Very possible, very possible. You don't see any other nation really having these problems, to my knowledge. But yeah, while he played, it's a difficult one because while he played, I'd actually put him in S. Only 4 games, but 2 goals as a center back. You can tell he's a huge threat in the air at 6'5", towering player. And in those 4 games that he played, he actually won goal of the month for Barnsley and player of the month for Barnsley. I think there's really no debate that he was a top 2 or 3 player for Barnsley. I would consider him their best player when he was playing, but since it was such a low volume and who knows what would have happened the rest of the year, honestly, I think if he was healthy, I think they had a very good chance of getting promoted. They ended up finishing 6th in the final playoff spot. I think they would have been a little bit higher, probably up in 5th if he was staying healthy, maybe higher. And I do really think that if he was healthy and they had him for the whole second half of the year, they probably would have been promoted. But hopefully we'll see that next year. If he can stay fit for the whole season, then who knows? Hopefully they can get promoted up to the championship because it'd be nice seeing another center back play at a high of a level. Greedy saying you wanted to do well because we lack center backs, but yeah, it would be really nice to see him perform. I think it was nice to see a little bit of a breath of fresh air, seeing a player play at a league and a level that we don't have a lot of Americans in. There's a couple others, as you can see, maybe on the list, but it's very unfortunate, the injury situation, but I'll put him in C.
Yeah, I think C is fine, honestly. But he did raise, I think his even props to you to say, oh, thank you again. You guys really like the hair. Thank you. Appreciate that. I think it has to be C for him. We're going to move to Charlie Kelman. Nobody ever talks about him. I think we can be brief on this one. I don't think I'm qualified enough to even rate his season, honestly. I watched highlights from one game here and there. Where would you put his season there, Braden?
I would give him a D. I don't even know why I had him on here, honestly. I just tried to put all of the players to get a full comprehensive review because I think we're the only channel that does something like this. You see a lot of other channels analyzing the top players, maybe some of the Olympic players as well, but really getting in there with all of the Americans abroad that I could find. But I give him a D. He got the move to Wigan on loan in the second half of the season, which was good. He wasn't playing too much for QPR, but I think his loan move was just meh. It was just meh. And considering, I would say the second half of the season was probably like a C plus. First half of the season was probably like a D. So overall, averages out to a C range.
Yeah, we have some good youth center backs coming up. Yeah, I think it's getting more promising as we move forward in the future. We're getting a better prospects in the center back position. At one time, it looked really gloom, but I think especially in USL, we're starting to see some guys step up. We'd produce more center backs if the MLS adds a relegation system so it can be more competitive. I completely agree. I think that the way that this league's set up right now, honestly, we're not going to produce any center backs. I think we have Jalen Neal, and that's about it, really, from guys that MLS is producing right now for that position. But now we're going to move on to another player that everybody knows and loves, Alex Martin. I think it was at Port Vale, right? He got loaned there. I don't know if it was a loan or a full move, but played in League One. Honestly, looking at the stats, no goal contributions. I'm just going to put it now as in D. Honestly, if a guy gets loaned and to that low of a level and gets 10 matches only, honestly, I can't rank him any higher. I don't know. But I'll be honest, didn't really watch him. F, maybe I can see an argument for that. I was trying to be kind there, but I agree. Isaac could be an F. Did you watch him, Brayden, any of the games?
Yeah, I watched him whenever I got the chance, which granted was a little limited just because it's second half of the season he was with Port Vale in League One. The first half of the season, I think, kind of gets forgotten. Maybe rightly so. He was in Belgium in the top tier with Kortrijk. He played 12 games for them in all competitions, 2 of those in the cup. 0 goals, 0 assists, got his loan terminated early. First half of the season, goes on loan to Port Vale. I was a fan of the move at the time. I thought League One was a pretty solid level for him to test himself. He had performed decently in the past for Nottingham Forest in the championship. I thought this could really get his career back on track. And lo and behold, another 10 games, 0 goals, 0 assists, bad performances throughout. Maybe he had 1 or 2 okay games, but overall, just a very disappointing season. Gus saying, move on from these nobodies a little faster. Well, I'll just end it there. F for my end.
All right. Well, thank you for the honesty. Appreciate that, Gus. Yeah, we're trying to do justice to all of them, but yeah, I think F is fine. Well, Icy agreed with an F too. Props to you guys. Props Raiden for even watching him. I didn't tune into any of his games. We're gonna move on to a player that's somehow possibly very relevant this summer. He is going to get the chance to play in the Olympics, as it looks like. Jonathan Tompkinson was there at Bradford, played really well there, according to their fans. And watching some highlights, he's really good in the air, but timing on the ball is a little bit weird, and on the ball, not that great either. But overall, I think he played a C-level season. Honestly, it's not nowhere near the level that our starting Olympic center back should be playing at. But I don't know if he's even going to start. So I would put him in C. I think it was a successful move for him. Bradford fans seem to love him. For what he played, what I can judge, I would put him there. What do you think, Brad? I know you're not the biggest fan of Tompkinson.
Yeah, Austin and Ice both saying C would be higher, better level is completely justified. I was disappointed because last season he got the loan move to Stevenage in League Two. Didn't play as much, but did help them get promoted. Got back to League Two. I was kind of hoping maybe he'd go to League One, but based on the fact that he was in and out of the lineup for Bradford, I think a C is justified. Getting those minutes, valuable experience was good. He is a Norwich City player, which is interesting. I think it's almost certain they move on from him this summer. I hope it's on a permanent deal. I think he's getting a little too old for all these loans. Gus also saying C is fair. When he was great when he played. Yeah, he was pretty good when he played. I don't think there was any performances that you could point out that were absolute shockers or anything that got him benched in particular. Just natural rotation. But I think this kind of goes back to the argument that we were having in the chat like five or so minutes ago. The whole center back thing. If MLS had a relegation system, it got more competitive, maybe we would have some more center backs. And Ice said we have some good youth center backs coming up. Ian James, Ramiz Hamuda, I think is who you're referring to, from Birmingham Legion. They both played together at SKC Academy. Stuart Hawkins, Noah Cobb. Yeah, the future is looking a little bit brighter, but for the immediate future, the U23s, the Olympics, the fact that Tompkinson is even in the running, playing at this level is very concerning in my opinion.
Now moving on, C level in fourth division. Yeah, I mean that's fair. I mean, judging from the sample that we saw, I think C is fair, but I would get it if someone tries to put it down to a D or F. But we're gonna move to talking about USL. I think he played in USL a while ago. Jeremy Kelly, the legend, was at Crawley Town. I really like Crawley Town's logo, and I had a FIFA career mode with them a while back, so I have a soft spot. But I will be honest. Oh yeah, Noah Kai Banks. Yes, Noah did well this year, but yeah. Kelly, I didn't watch him. I watched highlights for 2 games. Really tough to watch Crawley Town. I don't think I'm qualified enough to say it, but I don't see any rumors of a move. I'm just put in C. I don't know if it was worse or not. I don't really know. I'm in the dark on this one, Braden. Do you have a definitive grade for him?
Yeah, Noah Kai Banks, quickly, remember the name. We didn't have him and some of the other players on here that are at academy level just because it's impossible to watch full games from these players. You can get highlights here and there, but until they start playing at a higher level for a senior team, hopefully Noah Kai Banks can play at least 2 Bundesliga next year. I think that'd be a great step for him. But in my opinion, he's our highest ceiling center back in the youth pool. But on to Jeremy Kelly, I'd put him at a high B because it was only half a season. He joined, like you said, from USL, from Memphis 901, where he was a great player for Memphis, especially in 2022, having 18 goal contributions for them. He was such a good player in USL, got the deserved move. I like the fact that he's challenging himself as well. I always like when you see these USL players go abroad, try to challenge themselves. Sometimes it's in obscure leagues like this, like League Two. There's a player towards the end, Danny Trejo, we'll get to in a while, who moved from USL to the Polish league. I always like, things like this. Gus saying Kelly has 18 potential, he's the next dream. Maybe. A bit of a different position. He kind of plays all over, to be fair. I would call him a center mid, maybe a DM by trade, but he was playing a lot of left wing back for Crawley Town. And I was saying, this is the crucial thing. This is why it's a B. He did get promoted. I watched both full games, or I guess all 3 full games for Crawley Town. In the playoffs, both of the semifinal legs, where they absolutely battered MK Dons, doing football justice there, and beating Crew comprehensively in the final as well. I thought he played very well across those 3 games and consistently solid throughout the season. A locked-in starter for a promotion team, regardless of the level, has to be at least a B for me. And I'm very excited to see what he does in League One next year.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot easier to watch League One. I think, at least when I try to tune in. So now we're gonna move on to a player. I think Gus mentioned that he wanted us to move from the nobodies, not calling these guys nobodies, but they're really on the outskirts of the USMNT spectrum. We're gonna move to Luca de la Torre. This is a polarizing one. If you only watched January, you'd probably put him in S. He was really good during that month. Was really good in the Copa del Rey run they had. But overall, I think his stock dropped a little bit because of the emergence of some other players. And I will be honest, I watched a lot of Luca, and I think it's just boring. Sadly, he's a fellow San Diego native, but I have to put him in C, maybe. I think a low C. Honestly, I don't know where to grade him really, but in the way that he played, I think he's probably around that mark. I don't think he's too good to break into the starting 11, but bad to be outside of the picture. Sadly, again, Celta de Vigo, I think even though he mentioned that he would like to challenge himself in the future if possible, I don't know if he's really above that level. Where do you see his season, Braden? Do you think C is fair, harsh?
I would agree with C. Austin saying A for aura. That's interesting. I don't see any aura with this guy. Like you already said, I think he's just a bit of a boring player, kind of just standard. I think the fact that he's now out of the USMNT initial 23-man roster, I think it's fair to say, is probably for the best. I think we have better players coming up. Not saying that he's a bad player or anything. He's a solid player at La Liga level, but I think it's a little unfortunate because the situation he's in for club level isn't the best for him. He's playing out of position a little bit at left mid a lot of the time. Sometimes he plays in the middle, center mid, but I do think that I can't put him above a C for his performances. Like you said, he had one really good month, a great Copa del Rey run as well. But overall, 3 goals, 5 assists, not bad stats, but I think his performances were just a little meh, bland, uninspiring this year. So I'd put him at C. But if you want to give him a B, just due to the pretty decent volume of minutes that he got at a high level, I think that's fair.
Yeah, see, Gus says, I think C is fair, but he's the type of guy that should move to MLS. You'd help the league and his European adventures done. I think that's a little harsh, but honestly, I see the argument for it. He's not a guy that's going to be a USMNT regular. He could help some youngsters get used to more pressure on the ball, making this decision making being a little faster. Maybe he would benefit the US soccer more if you just move to MLS, but I think C is fair. C is fair. Don't worry, guys. I'm just kidding about the aura. I think I had a feeling you were just kidding, Austin, because I don't even think that his mom thinks he has that much aura. Really, I don't think that Luca has any aura, sadly. But yeah, I like to show him love too. He's from San Diego. San Diego FC. Ooh, that would be a good shout. I would definitely love that one. Maybe it's kind of crazy that we're talking about Luca coming back to MLS. I think it would make sense, but happy to see how DLT play on a wing a bit. Over, I think I agree with that. I think that as a left midfielder, not necessarily a winger, I think that he was really good. I also agree his best performances actually came when he was playing more as a left midfielder, in my opinion. And I don't know if he has a role to play in the USMNT, as I said. You missed the loyal. Oh yeah, I think everyone in San Diego would do. As San Diego FC is trying to be more immersive with the community. Let's see what happens. I think eventually every loyal fan will be a little bit more open to SDFC. Their owner said that he didn't have any, and he wasn't at fault for that. If anything, is MLS. But yeah, now we're going to stay in La Liga to a player that, again, his season only really counted January onwards. I think I've watched a lot of Brasileirão. For those of you guys that don't know in the chat, I'm born Brazilian. I'm Brazilian American. I have family there, go there almost every year. So I watched a lot of Johnny when he was at Internacional, and I wasn't expecting this great of a season for him at Betis. I'm going to put it in S tier, honestly. Maybe it's too high, but I think S tier. Just from where he was, this is the exact moment last year. He was starting to play in Brasileirão. He had a really bad Gauchão, which is the state championship in Brazil. And everything changed when Coudet, who was a manager at Celta de Vigo at one point, funnily enough, came in, saw a lot of qualities in Johnny, changed his play style, his role in the team a little bit. He got that move to Betis, and I think he hasn't looked back ever since. Really, really good. And the fact that he got the minutes he got, honestly, S tier for me. Do you agree, Braden?
Oh, it looks like the chat agree. I'm seeing everyone saying S tier. I would personally put him in A just because it was only a half of a season. The fact that he integrated so quickly and so well was very impressive, and it gives me a lot of hope for the future. I think he's maybe not a locked in starter for the USMNT, but I think right now it's very hard to see him losing a starting spot if Greg would actually give it to him. I think a lot of the fans would see he's probably deserving of it, but Greg seems a little bit reluctant to give him the opportunities, which is a bit unfortunate. I'd give him an A. It was only half a year, but I would see the argument for S. We'll put him in S for the tier list, and I think next season definitely will be an S if he continues playing at this level.
Yeah, I see. S for sure is better than Tyler. Oh, that's a big topic. I think it's been the topic for a while, but I don't think we really got the sample that we deserved as fans in the USMNT, and Tyler perhaps deserved too, with less minutes to help with his restriction. I think Greg is very, very adamant on staying with Tyler. He's one of the pillars on the team. But I'm happy that you guys agree with S. I thought maybe I was being too generous, but I agree. I agree with S. Just watching him, he passes the eye test. Yeah, definitely, really, really comfortable on the ball, and I'm happy with how more alert he is. Coudet really helped him develop in his limited time when he was there. I think he only coached him for 6 months at Inter, and he adjusted really well in La Liga. What a good move too. Honestly, props to the agent. His agents were trying to transfer for a while. I think perfect one. He adjusted seamlessly there. S and F to Greg for sticking with his favorites. I think it's harsh to say that Tyler is one of his favorites and that's why he starts. But yeah, I think Greg has the. He said in the past that the players were the ones that helped him stay in the job, and Tyler's the captain there. I can see the argument for sticking with Tyler as well. But anyways, we're gonna move on from really nice to see so far three S tier players right now to Diego Cochin. Uh, really more involved with the USYNT. Played really well in the friendlies against Morocco when I saw him. Got in the match day squad for Barca, so that could be an argument that could be an S. He's not exactly fully committed to the USMNT, but it's really, I think it would be tough to lose him. Where do you see his season, Braden, since you watched more of the youth soccer?
Mhm. Yeah, I was saying it's too early to rate Cochin. That's fair. And I think for kind of that reason, I'm gonna this is gonna be a very hot take, and if you guys disagree, please let me know in the chat. But I'm going to put his season at D. Just because, like you said, it's very impressive to see a goalkeeper or a player in general this young be on the bench for a giant in the world football game in Barcelona. It's very nice, especially for me as a Barcelona fan my whole life, to see an American consistently in the matchday squad for them, and to see him sitting next to these global superstars whenever you're watching the games and they pan to the bench. But just the fact that I think he could have got a lot of crucial minutes for Barca Athletic, the B team in the third tier this season. Like I was saying, he should be playing more for Barca too. I completely agree. I think they missed a huge opportunity not having him play every game. I think that would have been much better for his development instead of just sitting on the bench. And there's a lot of things you can gain from sitting on the bench for a team of that caliber. But at the same time, minutes are one of the most important things for a player, especially towards the back. You don't want to have your goalkeepers, center backs, those type of players out of form or a little bit rusty. So I think I'm going to give him a D just because there was the opportunities there for him to be playing for Barca Athletic. Dan Stomps agreeing as well, saying he should have been at Barca B. Yeah, if he was there, I would have given him an S because getting these opportunities with the first team, and maybe if he had played for the second team as well, it would have been higher. But I think overall it's a D. Hopefully he plays for the second team next season. He did sign a new contract with them recently, so encouraging signs. But for this year, I'd put him towards a D.
Yeah, I think it doesn't even sound that harsh because I think it's more on Barca than himself because he was good when he played for our youth teams and when we saw him. Having a Mexican coach in Barca B could affect. I don't think so. I don't think. I think that Rafa is pretty set on trying to raise his stock inside the club. He probably envisions himself coaching the A team at some point. If coaching is the best available goalkeeper he has, I don't think that's going to get in the way. And the coach said he rated him. So yeah, and he did play that match against America, right? Talking about Mexicans, he played against Club America on the friendly. Granted, it was just a cash grab for Barca, but yeah, I think D is fair, just because he didn't get the opportunity to develop at Barca B. It's probably best to do that than just stay with the bench, because people can say, "Oh, the experience." He's experiencing day to day with those guys, anyways, in training. So could have been a better season in that sense. Now we're going to move on to the next player right there. And again, thank you so much, guys, for being on the stream. We really appreciate seeing all the interaction. Now, if you want to scroll up, rating for us to see, it's going to be Conrad de la Fuente. I'm a huge believer in this guy for whatever reason. I'm just never going to forget the potential that he has. But hey, he got his first professional goal, I think, this season. Scored one nice goal, but honestly, it didn't really do what it was supposed to do in terms of reviving his career. So I'm going to put it in D. I'm Greek American. I support Olympiacos FC. And when he got loaned to us from Barca, I wanted to kill myself. He was probably worse than my sister. Ever since then, I don't know what he's been doing. Well, he scored his first goal this season, so that's for anything. But really nice to see Greek American. Nice, Austin. Thank you so much for tuning in, and congratulations to Olympiacos, all Olympiacos fans as well. Huge props to you guys. Great fan base, definitely deserved that. So honestly, really happy, and none of the bookies had them even getting to the final. So props to Olympiacos. Huge win for the sport there. But back to Conrad, I think D. I'll just say D, even though I'm one of his biggest supporters and lawyers that will defend him there in any arguments. Do you agree, Braden? Do you think it was F? I can see an argument for that too.
I would give Austin's comment an S. That was hilarious. And like you said, here, props to Olympiacos. Congratulations, an incredible run for them. Speaking of the Conference League, or sorry, no, that was Conference League. Conrad did actually score for Marseille in the Conference League, so it wasn't his first professional goal this year for Ibar. I'd give him a C, just because we know how disastrous his time at Marseille and Olympiacos was. He didn't really break into Barca's first team when he was there at La Masia, showing so much promise. The fact that he broke in as a bench player, a crucial player off the bench, scoring 4 goals, getting 1 assist this season. It's not the best numbers, to be sure, but by far his best professional season, and the only year, I think, where he's really shown signs of hope. So I'd give him a C just for that.
All right. Yeah, I think D is fair, but I'm bored talking about he's not relevant anymore. Oh, poor guy, man. Maybe you never know. He could be a late bloomer. Let's see what the future holds. But yeah, C, D. I think we can just be a coin toss between those two. But again, as to your comment, Austin, and again, congrats to all Olympiacos fans. I'm sure you were happy with that. We're going to move to Jonathan Gomez. I'm going to say his season, in my opinion, didn't really pan out as well as it could have been because even though he was really good, for whatever reason, it's been criminally underrated by everyone. Never, no one even talks about him anymore. But I say, just in terms of experience and the possibility of him being seriously included in Real Sociedad's squad next season, I think it could be a case since he had played quite well and fixed some issues in his game. I think that he used to get carded quite a lot, got a lot better with that. And I would put it in B, C. I don't know if B is too high, probably C. But it could have been better in terms of coverage. I think everyone forgot about Jogo, and yeah, we all these left backs emerging. He's kind of dropped down in the pecking order, but for himself, with the sample that I saw, he looked a lot better than he looked in the past. He was a lot better than it when he was at Elsis when last season. So I put it in C. Do you agree, Brandon?
I'd put it in B. And I think based on his play, the fact that he was a consistent starter every week, at least when he was healthy, for Mirandes in the second tier, it was a good experience for him. I'd put his play in A. I will bump it down to B just because the club did decline to release him for the first couple Olympic camps. And I think that ultimately did contribute, as well as maybe the fact that USSF didn't have as much of a way to watch him as some of the MLS guys like Wiley and Tolkien. And it's not to take anything away from Wiley or Tolkien, but I think Gomez should have had a chance at some point, and he didn't get that. Partially due to Mirandes not releasing him, partially due to maybe some other reasons. So I think a B is pretty fair.
Yeah, I agree. I hope, let's see Austin right here. I hope Olympiacos can be a team for the underdeveloped USMNT guys with potential so they can make a name out for themselves. Greek League, yes, it is very overlooked. And I think it's the perfect, and maybe this is a crazy shout, it's a perfect place for a guy like Luca de la Torre to build some aura. I think a place like that, it's a little bit less talked about, but you consistently get clubs playing in Europe. I think it'd be a great place for him to shine and for those guys kind of in the fringes. Unfortunately, MLS overvalues their players, so it's hard for clubs to pay so much. Yes, that is true. And also, there's the fact not only of the transfer fees, where they can be priced out of a transfer, but also the wages. Like Miles Robinson said, he didn't really back himself to, in the long run, earn more than what he got offered at Cincy. So, yeah, MLS has definitely a few talking points there. Maybe we should do a live someday talking about MLS. Let us know if you guys would enjoy that. But I see a few more comments, and yeah, we'll move on to the next player right here on the list. Sadly, Jonathan Gomez will not be included in the Olympics, like someone mentioned there. And Pedro Soma, I'll be honest, I couldn't really watch him. Saw the links with Barcelona, but really hard to watch this guy. Really hard to even keep up in apps or anywhere. I don't think I'm too qualified to talk about Pedro other than the USYNT games that I saw from him. Very solid. I don't know if the Barca links are realistic. I'll place it in C because, quite frankly, I don't think I'm qualified to rate this one. Did you get the opportunity to see him, Braden?
I'll preface this by saying I rate Pedro Soma very highly. I think at the U17 World Cup last fall, he was incredible, one of our best players. I think he has an incredible ceiling, but I would give this season an F. And the fact that I included him at all was to make this point, because I think some of the other youth players aren't included. You'll see that, and it's completely justified to not have him here. As saying, he didn't really play much with the main team or with the U23s. That's the point. I think at the level he has and the potential he has, should be playing in an academy for a top level, an A team level club, a club that's in the top five leagues. He should be at a top Spanish academy playing for the U19s, maybe the U21s, U23s, whatever it may be, not playing for a team in the third tier. They got relegated, by the way. So that's another thing. If he doesn't leave, he could be forgotten altogether because I think playing for a fourth tier team would be a disaster for him. He needs to leave. Barely playing for a team that got relegated from the third tier of Spain is not at all what you would want from his career. He probably should have just gone to some high level academy. If there was any validity to the La Masia links, he should have definitely gone there. But yeah, I'd give his season an F.
Yeah, and I also agree with what Gus said right there. At that level, again, like I said, I wasn't qualified enough to rate this one, but based on what you guys are saying, and also that's a good point that Gus brings up. At that level, he really should be starting. I think he meant prospect, prospect. Yeah, I don't know if being the most overrated is fair to say, but with the links, yeah, it doesn't really correlate with what we've been talking about him with moves to probable La Masia, but yeah, didn't really play a part in his team. So I think that's fair to stay down at the bottom. Now moving on to an A-teamer. Again, we're transitioning league by league right here. So now we're in the Bundesliga. We have a lot of players there, a lot to talk about. Joe Scally, the man who, in most people's opinion, should and could step up to cover for Dest's injury this summer during Copa America. Scally, again, played a lot in a back three as a center back almost. Tough season for me to grade right there. He had a banger of a goal earlier on in the season. I think that was the most notable moment that he got in terms of media coverage. I don't know. I'll place it in C. Joe Sky is another player that almost made me not lie of myself. That one game with Jamaica made me want to switch sports to golf. I think that Turner got overlooked on how much of a part he played on that goal. But yeah, Scally was horrible that game. Horrible is being kind. Frankly, it wasn't good. I don't think he ever really had a good game for the USMNT, apart from that one against Canada, where he did play well against Davies. But even the other ones against Grenada, I've never saw Scally play well for us. I'll place it in C, honestly. I don't think that his season is good enough to get the links with Premier League. I think he'd quite frankly probably be exposed there. But hey, what do I know? Do you agree, Braden? Do you think it was higher, lower? I can see an argument for being lower. I don't know if for higher.
I'll start with Ice's point. He said Loki B. It wasn't as bad as people think. One goal and 4 assists. That's the one thing that I think you can point to being a lot better this year than last season. His attacking end product was a lot better. Scoring the same amount of goals, just one, but 4 assists this year for Gladbach. He didn't actually get any last season, so huge improvement there. He played more games, I think more minutes as well. But Greedy saying B or C, we found his ceiling. I think it's a little harsh to say that. He's still 21, and he's going to be 21 until the end of the year. It's kind of funny. His birthday is actually the last day of the year, December 31st. But I think the fact that he is so young gets overlooked just because, kind of like his best friend Gio Reyna, the fact that both of them have been in the scene for so long, we overlook how young they are and how much of a future they have. If we had better right backs, I think it's very fair to say he would be one of the best players at the Olympics for us, but he's kind of forced into the A team, especially now with Dest being injured. He's probably going to start getting thrown into the deep end. Maybe it'll be good for him. Maybe it won't be. I'll give him. It's a tough one. I'm gonna give him a B, just because the Bundesliga, like Greedy's saying, nothing wrong with that. Bundesliga is legit. Agreed. This year in particular, I think the Bundesliga had the argument to be the best league. Just you look at Leverkusen's run, how good Stuttgart were, Dortmund's run to the Champions League final. I do think that the Bundesliga had a major argument to be one of the best leagues this season. And the fact that he was a pretty consistent starter there, playing a variety of roles, showing his versatility as well, I think a B is fair, but C as well is also very valid.
Yeah, I think if we could put B minus then C plus. Missing Julian Araujo every day. Oh, who would have thought we would be saying that? Honestly, props to Araujo. I didn't really rate him when he was at Galaxy. He ended up having a very solid season there at Las Palmas. I don't think he's ahead of Scally. I don't know. It's a tough one. Probably very similar level, but I'll still take Scally over him. Now let's move on right here. Although for the Olympics and attacking threat, I think that Araujo's probably a better player. Moving on to Jordan Pefok, another forgotten man, kind of fell into this gray area where he's not really USMNT conversation anymore because we have a lot of nines now, but not bad enough to be out of the picture. Probably fifth or sixth in the pecking order. I'll say, honestly, if Pefok had stayed fit, we have the argument that he didn't really get the bot. They're not going to exercise the option to buy him, so he's going to be back at Union Berlin. But he dodged a bullet there at Union Berlin, played relatively well, and he was at Gladbach. I'll put in C. I think I can't be harsh and put him in D. Do you agree, Braden, or would you put it at D?
I completely agree with what Ice is saying here. C, couldn't stay healthy, but started off well. Yeah, I thought he was pretty solid in general when he played. As the type of striker he is, there's going to be games where he is absent just because he's more of a target man, scores physical goals, and players like that. And we saw it with Brandon Vasquez as well. We'll get to him. He's one of the last players here. But players like that, they have a lot of good games where they score goals, but they have a lot of games where they kind of ghost a little bit. And I think it was kind of that was the story for Pefok this season. He still got 10 goal contributions in all competitions, which is notable. Ice actually just said that as well in the chat. So that's a silver lining. But the fact that he isn't staying there, he doesn't know his future for his club situation, and the fact that he's 28 years old, not knowing his future is a little bit concerning. I think it's fair to say he's out of the USMNT picture, probably for good. Maybe going to be a John Brooks type player where he's kind of a Bundesliga journeyman, not really in the consideration for the national team. So I give him a C, I think.
Yeah, I think C is fine. We're gonna move on to Kevin Paredes. Bit of a tough one right here. I think Paredes. I could see an argument for a vast array of ratings right here. Uh, really hard to pinpoint this one. I don't want to stay on the fence and say C, as I've done with a few players because I watched a lot of Paredes this year. I'll put him in B. I think B, even though his performance for the USMNT when he got that chance in Austin, we were there. Also, thank you guys. It was thanks to you guys watching the channel that we got that opportunity. I think, yeah, we got that jersey. Really nice. Kevin Paredes, I'll put him in B. I think overall it was still step up, a natural step into his development. And yeah, he is solid, very solid. I think just really underwhelming against France in the U23s friendly. But that's not his club season. And I'll put him in C and B. What do you think, Brayden? Do you see it being higher or lower?
I agree with B. Like Ice is saying here, he got himself into the main team. He had a very nice run mid-season of games where he was starting consistently, like 7 or 8 games in a row where he started, which was huge for him as such a young player in the Bundesliga at a very high level. It's going to be a big year next year. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think next season he can push on and cement himself as a starter the whole season. He had a couple of spells, but overall started about half the games he played this year. 3 goals, which was nice, his most in a season ever, including even at DC United. His best year with DC was 3 goals and 1 assist. So the fact that he has 3 goals now in the Bundesliga, it's a huge sign of promise. I think he's one of our highest potential wingers. Whether he'll hit that, it remains to be seen. I think for the U23s, there's better players like Griffin Yao in particular at the moment, but his potential is very high. We saw a lot of bright flashes at club and country level this season of that. So I think a B is pretty fair.
Yeah, and we're going to move on to, for those of you guys that don't know, Brayden's sole savior of the sport right here, Brenden Aaronson gets a lot of hate. Didn't have a good first half of the season, let's be honest. Ended the season probably in a high, and with Union Berlin fans, you see even the USMNT posts when he's in training, some Union Berlin fans there. So it goes to show he did bounce back, had a very polarizing season. I'll put him in C. Just because I can't overlook the first half of the season. I think the move, as we did in the transfer video, rating the moves, I don't rank it too highly. I'll probably put it in F or D, but his play, I'll put him in C. I think he was all right, and a perfect sub to have. DC United need to get their stuff together. No MLS Next Pro team, so much talent. Yeah, that's right. And also a player that you guys mentioned in the comments, Griffin Yao was there, and they didn't give him any chances to play. So yeah, I don't know what's up with DC, but I'll put Brandinho in C. Do you agree, Brayden?
Yeah, and on the DC United thing, I could make a whole 30-minute long video ranting about DC United's club situation. So much talent, but the lack of an MLS Next Pro team and their official, unofficial connection with Loudoun has been very shaky as well. But that's a different topic for a different time. Brenden, I think C is fair. It was a huge second half of the season for him. Towards the end of the year, he looked so good. I really like to see it. He brought my joy back. I think that's a pretty iconic meme on football Twitter. He brought my joy back at the end of the season. But like you said, the first half of the season, it's just unfortunate because that was when they were in Champions League. Although I will say the club, for as poor of a season that they had, I thought they fought very well in the Champions League. A couple last-minute heartbreaks against Real Madrid. They were very close to getting a result, even at the Bernabeu. So a lot of fight shown. Overall, I think a C is fair. And Dalton Gillen, wow. $10 super chat. Keep up the good work, gents. Cheers. Thank you so much, Dalton, for being here for the super chat. And yeah, we'll keep up the content. Like we said at the start of this stream, I mean, that was a while ago now, but it's only just the beginning. There's going to be so much content this summer, a lot of streams as well. We love interacting with you guys here. I mean, we love replying to your comments on all our videos, but having you guys here, having a discussion with us live as well is a huge thing. But yeah, I think Brendan's a C.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dalton. Really, really appreciate it. And you said us to for us to keep up the good work. We'll try to do that. Try to always hone our talents right here in the channel and filter the content that you guys like to watch. So always we'll try to respond to every comment. Really appreciate all of you guys here involved. And I think we came to a consensus here. C for Brenden is fine, which is good, honestly, considering the first half of the season. Props to him for bouncing back. Now we're going to move to Timo Chandler, the best dual national to ever grace the SMNT. No, props to him. He is a club icon at this point. Solid season for him. I don't think it's too relevant in the grand scheme of things, really, for the A team. I'll put him in a B season. For his age, I think a B season is just fine. But let's face it, this guy's never getting called up again.
If we're considering for his standards, I'd probably put it up towards a B, but I think overall, I'm gonna put it in D. The reason I had him here is because I want to give him a huge shout out. Like you said, he's a club legend now at Frankfurt, and that's the type of thing I want to see more of our players doing. So you could argue maybe that's the one counter argument for CCV. We'll get to him in a bit, but there's a lot of discourse, and I've been very critical as well in the past for him just staying at Celtic, signing the extension. But if he becomes a club legend there, it's not a bad thing. I think we see a lot of USMNT fans when we're focusing on our players, we get a little too ahead of ourselves. We're always looking, okay, what's the next step up? Can he make a step up? Can he make another step up after a good season? I think some players need to just chill, find their level, stay there, and become cult heroes, legends, whatever for their clubs. Kind of like Gooch did at Sunderland, what Chandler's doing. I love to see players like that. So I'd put him in a D for the season, but overall, I think he's a very underrated player in the grand scheme of things. Not for what he did for the USMNT. Unfortunately, he didn't get as many chances as I would have liked. And when he did, he was not great. But I think at the club level, he's an icon. But I'd give him a D for the season.
Yeah, I'll agree then. I'll put him in D there. But you brought a good point. I think that some of our players that aren't quite cut to be at the highest level, if they just solidify themselves as club icons and legends for smaller clubs, that helps the cause. Get to the main guys. We're almost there. We're getting there. Perhaps this guy is a main guy for a lot of people. Jonathan Brooks. A lot of people earlier in the season wanted him to have a shout with the A team. I was never an advocate for that. I'll say that. I watched a lot of John Brooks this season. Maybe I'm being harsh here. I'll put him in D. Just the level of his play. I think that perhaps the European adventure is done. And I thought that he cost him quite a few points here and there. He has the stats for the goals and assists, but watching him, I don't think that. I think there's a reason why they won't really be sad if he leaves. So, what do you think, Braden? Do you think I'm being too harsh? I like Brooks as well. Gave one of my favorite moments as a fan, but I'll put him in D just based on the eye test.
Just replying to George quickly, we are kind of at the main guys. The way we have this formatted, we go down the league system for each country. So we started off with the Premier League guys, a lot of the main ones, Championship as well. And we're in the Bundesliga. We just ranked a couple of the main ones. But yeah, we'll definitely be making these lesser known guys a lot more brief. But yeah, for Brooks, I give him a D. He played a lot in this first half of the season, but Hoffenheim weren't that great. I thought his performances were very unspectacular. He made a few big mistakes, ended up getting benched for basically the entire second half of the season. And as a result, they qualified for Europe. So it's got to be a D for me. The fact that he's leaving is, I think, a good thing. He's on his way out. I think as a 31-year-old, he's entering the twilight of his career. And who knows where he'll end up going. It'll be interesting to see if he goes to some obscure league. Maybe he'll end up in Turkey, like the rumors in the past. But yeah, who knows? But I think for this season, it's got to be a D.
Yeah, and George saying that Venezia promoted, congrats. Centesimo is the real deal. Yuri props. Oh, thanks a lot. Yeah, maybe I don't know if I'm the first to believe in him. I'm pretty sure some people that had watched him before probably thought that. Thank you for the super chat as well. Really appreciate it. But yeah, I'm kind of happy with that shout because when I started saying that he was a really good prospect and possible A-team material in the future was, I think, February, March last year when he was just starting to solidify himself in the starting lineup for Venezia. Nice for them to get up. We're going to get to them later on in the video. Now, moving on to another defensive midfielder. Thank you, Greedy. Congrats to Venezia. Yeah, thank you so much. Really happy with that. And could play in the championship. Do you refer to Will Griggs on fire? Your defense is terrified. He's right here in the comments below. Do you think that he Do you refer to Tessman, who we just talked about, or Brooks? I think Brooks would find it a bit tough in the championship, really, just for the physicality and the pace of the game, even at his age. Maybe a good shout. I'll be happy if he moves there. But we're going to move on now to another defensive midfielder. We're just talking about Tessman. Talking now about a guy that got promoted last year. What a season he had. Lennard Maloney, perhaps the most notable snub that we had in this last roster. I'll put his season in A. Honestly, I think Josh Sargent's looking very lonely right there in the A tier right now, and I think that Maloney, for the expectations that Heidenheim probably had, they definitely exceeded that. Going to play in Europe next year, and he improved as the season went along. I'll be honest, the first 3 games I thought he was very bad on the ball, very shy, and wanted to. He always wants the ball, but he seemed like he couldn't be really part of any build up in any plays. Ended the season playing really well throughout the entire season. Just had a time to adjust, which is normal for these players in that part of the pitch. I'll put him in A. Do you agree, Braden? Do you think it should be B, and do you think he should have been called up?
I think 100% he should have been called up. The fact that Tim Tillman is there and he's not, it's so unfortunate because when we did the CDM tier list video a while ago, I think it just kind of shone the light on, we have so many of these players, Adams, Johnny, Tessman now playing incredible, like you guys in the chat have been mentioning, these Serie A bounds. I think it's unfortunate for Lennard Maloney because he's a very, very good player, a very solid, respectable CDM at the Bundesliga level. And for Heidenheim, in their first ever Bundesliga season as a club, qualifying for Europe in 8th place, incredible achievement. I think it gets a little overlooked by USMNT fans how great Maloney and Heidenheim did and how much they overachieved. Henry saying Maloney S definitely. I think I think that's a little harsh. I think he didn't have as many memorable performances as you would want for S, but I think, like you said, Sargent looks a little lonely in A, so I would put him in A. And I think I'm looking forward to seeing him play in Europe next season.
All right. Yeah, I think A is fine. I think everyone's kind of agreeing. I saw one shot for an S. I think not quite S yet, but maybe next season. Tasman's going to be special in 26. Let's hope so, Austin. I'm definitely his biggest supporter, whether he stays up in it or not. That looks kind of unlikely, but yeah, let's keep tabs on these guys for the future. Talking about the future, Damion Downs right here, a player that got included, I think, is a pleasant surprise in the latest the Olympic preparation. And I think he showed really, really good promise when he was playing. I thought that he was very impressive going from where he was last season. I'll put him in B. I think B is fair. Maybe it didn't get quite the playing time as desired, but why do you think Greg didn't call up Maloney? I don't know. I think that Greg probably is going to use one CDM only, and honestly can't really pinpoint why he called Timmy Tillman. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. So I don't know. Really don't know why he didn't call up Maloney. Can't really point a finger or try to come up with a reasonable explanation. But what do you think, Braden? If you want to give your take, why you think he didn't call up Maloney, and your grade for Downs, do you think B is fair?
I think what Ice is saying is part of it. The 27th man wouldn't call someone from Europe to get cut because the travel situation. We did actually hear Maloney talk about when he did get called up to the USMNT for the first time. He was about to go on vacation actually with his family, had to adjust last minute, make a huge trip to the US. So if he had to do something like that again just to end up getting cut would have been a little bit harsh. So I do understand if that's the reason a little bit. I also think that Greg is fully set with the sixes group with Tyler Adams and Johnny Cardoso. I don't think he was going to call a third one in. So maybe that's why I would have called him personally. I think a lot of USMNT fans would have. But moving on to Damion Downs, I'm going to give him a B for this season. Made his first team debut, broke in a little bit as a key player off the bench, scored one really huge, crucial goal for them that ultimately didn't matter as much as we would have liked because they did ended up getting relegated regardless. But it was a great moment for him and for the club at the time. I think it's a B. He's a bit of an odd player, kind of Haji Wright-esque, where he is a striker by build, but he does like to drift out wide a little bit, kind of a tweener type player. But yeah, I think his future is going to be interesting. I wish he was involved with the Olympic group a little bit more throughout the year, maybe more than Johan Gomez, who we're actually going to get to pretty soon. But I think a B is pretty fair for his season.
Yeah, and I think that he's the type of guy that could honestly, even overtake Maguire in the game against Japan if he gets a chance. I think that for that level, for the type of player he is, definitely good things to look forward for him. Now moving on to another player in Germany. This is a dual national, Nathaniel Brown. Got a really good move for this next season already. Looked really promising. I think his season probably goes into a B in my opinion as well. Maybe A. I think that Brown was really good. Just again, all these left backs coming and popping out of nowhere, man. Hopefully that's the case with the center backs, which is I think right now our weakest position. The case that was the case with the left backs last season and the nine, and now well we seem to have a lot of options. Do you agree, Braden? Do you think that B is fine?
Yeah, I would actually put him at A just because we see Jonathan Gomez in B. I think Nathaniel Brown had a better season at a slightly higher level. The second divisions all around Europe. I think the championship is the undisputed best one by quite a margin. The other ones for the rest of the top four leagues, we'll say. I'm not going to include League Two in France because I think that's a little bit lower of a level than the other ones. But Bundesliga 2, La Liga 2, Serie B, I think are all pretty similar levels, but I would give the slight edge to the second Bundesliga. And I think Brown had better performances regardless for Nuremberg. And clearly, I mean, getting the chance to sign for Frankfurt is going to be very interesting to see how he does next season. I'd give Nathaniel Brown an A. I think despite all the left back depth that we do have, I think he's a top prospect that we need to continue to focus on recruiting because if he puts in these type of performances for Frankfurt, he's 100% going to be an important player. Maybe as a backup, maybe probably not as a starter, but yeah.
Yeah, I think yeah, like you said, it's really important to get to these other guys to recruit these other guys. And as I read right here, George saying rush these next guys. Yeah, I know a lot of people don't know them. I think we can rush Julian Green, even though he had a good season. He was playing really well in my opinion. I'll put him in the C level season just because he didn't really get him into the picture for the USMNT again. I think that will never happen. But props, good season for him. Some of these other guys that are not too well known, though, George, I think that they need a little bit of justice right here. They're good players, some promising ones. But yeah, we'll be more brief on the ones that are on the outskirts. Julian Green, in my opinion, C is just fine for him. Maybe B. He played really well, in my opinion, when I saw him. Do you agree, Braden?
Yeah, I'll cater to you, George. I'll make this very quick. I'm going to give Julian Green a B. When he was playing, he did have one injury issue towards the end of the year, but when he was playing, 4 goals, 4 assists, all around very solid performances. And I don't think it's a coincidence that when he got injured, Rutherford started to fall off a little bit. They were pushing towards the promotion playoff spot towards the first half of the season, but they ended up falling off, finishing eighth. I think Maxi Dietz, his teammate, fellow German American actually, who's been with the Olympics team, warrants more of a discussion. So we'll get on to him, but I'll give Julian Green a B.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think B is fine. He played really well, guys. I know that some people won't forgive him for taking Donovan's spot in the roster way back. Didn't really pan out for him in the USMNT, but Henry is saying agree, Ice. Ice, I think he's referring to the other sub Icy who's been here. Thank you, Icy, as well. Really appreciate you've been here throughout the. Been loving to read your comments. Should be ready to hear a discussion. Yeah, just be respectful, guys. But yeah, we will skip kind of some of them that are really not well known. But I don't think that's the case with Dietz. He was involved with the Olympic side, played really well in that game against France, which I think is the biggest sample anyone can have out of higher level, most mainstream. That one was streamed in Paramount Plus. If you guys had it, it was in CBS Golazo. So I would say Dietz season, I would kind of put it in B, but I can see an argument for being A as well. I don't know, even C as well with the injury. Tough one to grade, but I really liked what I saw from him. Really, really good player. I think even in preseason when he played against Liverpool, he showed some good, promising signs. I'll place the season in B. Would have been A or higher if they got promoted, but Gregor Forrest unfortunately kind of bottled it at the end. Do you agree, Brandon? Am I being harsh on Dietz?
This is a good point. Dietz A if Tompkinson C. That's fair. And yeah, I'm perfectly down to give Dietz A. I would think B is a little bit more fair just because the performances did tail off a little bit towards the end of the season. They conceded a little too many goals for my liking. No need to apologize, George. You're completely justified. Some of these players we should probably make a little bit quicker. We've been going for a while now. And again, thank you so much for the super chat that you sent earlier. But for Dietz, I think he's a very important player. I think I was one of the first, maybe the first one to really put him on the radar for the USMNT. and to really emphasize my belief in him. I still think he has a very bright future. I think it's very unfortunate that he did get injured towards the end of the year and ended up missing out on the final prep camp for the Olympics, which just kind of sucks for him because I think he deserves the spot. So for that, I think you can argue his play was an A, but just because of the injury at the end of the season and the poor timing to that, I'll give him a B.
Really poor timing. So got it. And I think that's a great point. If Tompkinson's a C, I think needs to be an A. But I think the injury kind of brings it down because if he had a good showing in the Olympics, he would be reinforcing even more his case for a better move for next season, which I think could be the case still. Moving on to Johan Gomez. Yeah, I think that Gomez, I'll put it in, honestly, from what I saw and what I think he's capable of, I think a C is fine. I think he did himself justice, played at a higher level than last season. Not a great player by any means, but he's a fighter, man. I'll give him props for that. He's a guy that hustles in the front. Against France, he looked better than even Maguire, really. The guy has a lot of heart, carving himself a career out in Europe. Props to him. I think C is fair. Maybe I could see an argument for lower than that, but I just like the spirit and the fight that he shows. I think, I don't know. Do you agree, Braden?
Yeah, I'd give him a low C, like a C minus range. If we had all these C plus, C minus, those types of tiers on here, I think it would take forever. So we just condense them a little bit. But low C makes sense to me. It was his first season at this high of a level at all. He was playing in the third tier before moving up to the second tier of Germany. His club, Eintracht Braunschweig, ended up staying up, which was a big thing for them. They were in danger towards the end of the year of going down potentially. So I think staying up is a big thing. And I think the fact that it's his first season, 3 goals, 2 assists, not too many great performances, but it was an adjustment season for him. I'll give him a C. And here's an interesting debate from George here. Which Gomez brother will be better in the long run? I think Jonathan will be. It's interesting that Johan's been the one who's been getting the opportunities with the Olympic team. I think that kind of just speaks to the positional depth that we now have at left back for that age level. Striker is a little bit less. There's players like Damion Downs, Kaba Zahir Islam, who we'll get to in a little bit, that maybe deserve more opportunities. But I think in the long run, Jogo, the traditional Jogo, Jonathan Gomez, will be a better player. It's just tough to see whether he'll be playing for the main US17. Maybe he'll play for Mexico. Really, who knows?
Yeah, answering that question, I think that Jonathan Gomez has probably will settle into the higher level, but maybe Johan. Honestly, I think that he really does show a lot of fight. I agree, he was good against France. I don't know if just fight gets you to that top level, but he'll have a good career nonetheless. Mexico creeping in, definitely. I think Mexico just calling in Johan to keep Joe. Maybe, yeah, and Mexico just giving a chance to their U23s against Bolivia showed that maybe they caught on that they need to focus on the future. He was good against France, guys. I agree. I think that if he plays like that, he has the mindset to reach a higher level. So let's keep cheering him on. Moving on to a more experienced forward right there in Germany, Terrence Boyd. Really cool celebration, but I'll be honest, didn't really keep up with Boyd this season. Don't really know, and props to you guys that have said for us to be a little bit more brief about these guys that are unknown. I'll rank it as C, D. Don't really know much to rank for. Maybe MLS should be the destination for this guy.
I'm just gonna group him and Jalen Hawkins together because they actually play at the same club in the third Bundesliga, Waldorf Mannheim. I'm gonna give Boyd a B and Hawkins a C based on this season. I think Terrence Boyd, he joined from Kaiserslautern, which maybe that was a bad decision because we saw them reach the DFB Pokal final. So maybe if he had stayed there, he would have been able to help them. He did score 4 goals for them before leaving in January, but his 7 goals and 2 assists were crucial to keep Waldorf Mannheim up. They would have been relegated without him, I think. So I'd give him a B. I'd give Hawkins a C as well. There's not much to talk about. He had a couple goal contributions, something spectacular. Big 17 saying, could you show C to FSU Talk? 100%. 100% I'll do that. I'll move these players and show you the full updated tier list as we move on to the next player, Castañeda.
Yeah, thanks for the comment. I think it's a good moment for us to have a bit of a recap. Let you guys have the opportunity to look at the next players. As we move on to the next one, you can see, or we'll put Hawkins. I'll agree with you, Braden. And now moving on right here, you see the D, C, and F tiers right there. F, we only have 4, which is fair. And to the defensive DK, it was more due to his injury. So it's not really based on play, but it has to be an F season for him. Moving on now, before Braden just frames it there for people to look at, in the C level, we have quite a few players, and moving on now to the Duisburg Bellingham. That's what people call Castañeda. Had a very promising season there. I think that he is very slept on, if we want to be honest, but I still need to see a little bit more at a higher level. But a very promising player on highlights and on YouTube. Every player looks like Messi, but he does look really good there. A very good physique to him as well. That could easily adjust to a higher level. Maybe he gets a chance of doing that in the future. Doesn't really, very underrated, doesn't get talked about. I think his season, just based on having that nickname, has to be B or A for the level that he's at. So what do you think, Braden? Does he join Maloney and Sargent there at the A tier?
Yeah, I will leave the tier list. I unfortunately I can't fit all of the tiers in one frame anymore because of the amount of players, but I'll leave A through F up here so you guys can get a good recap. We're about an hour and a half in, so this is the recap for now. You guys can get a good look at it as I talk about Castañeda, and I'll bring up what Icy said in the comments. High C, low B. I would put Castañeda at a B. He got a good move. This is the crucial thing. You said you want to see him at a higher level. That's the one concern that I have, and probably a lot of fans have with Castañeda. He's playing for the third Bundesliga for a Duisburg team, where as he did become a fan favorite, they did end up getting relegated. So that is the main concern for him. But he signed for Paderborn. He'll be playing in the second Bundesliga next year. If he adjusts there next year, I think there's going to be a lot of hype around him because he is such a young player, still just 19. I think if he has a good year next year, integrates well into the team, he's going to immediately become a part of the radar. Sorry, mixing up my words a little bit. So I think I'd put Castañeda's season at a B, and he's really one to keep an eye on for the future.
Hey, that's a wait. What did Horvath do? Where we placed Horvath right here. See, we just took into consideration that the first half of the season he wasn't included even on match day squads. So as we said, if we are grading just the second half of the season, the Big 17, I think we'd probably have him in A or B. Had a few dodgy moments here and there with Cardiff, but very solid game time. Probably could be in contention to be a starter. Don't think it'll happen, but just considering that first half of the season, since we are grading this in a season-long spectrum, I think that around the C level is fine. The first half does hurt him because if he was fit then, he probably would have gotten a chance with the U17 to start because Matt wasn't and didn't go through a good moment the entire season. So that's what we took into consideration. But thank you so much for tuning in as well. Please keep commenting. We appreciate the interaction. We're going to move right here to a few more players that are unknown to the masses right here. We got Brian Caio, cool name, honestly. I think it's a cool name. And Grayson DeTony. If we want to group both of them together, kind of in the same situation. Just came back from the store for the shampoo. Thanks you. Oh, you're welcome, man. Thank you very much for tuning in. As I said, Tresemme is a good. You guys were complimenting the hair. Thanks, and yeah, that's what the wife gets and what I use. So, but moving on to Brian Caio and DeTony, is it fair for us to group both of them together, Braden? I would just say I'll put it as C and B because I think that DeTony was even included in trained with the first team, did really well, started almost every match for the second Bayern team. So that's why I have more capability to grade because I watched a little bit more. Do you think it's fair? I'll also say DeTony was snubbed with the players we were calling up for the U23s. He should have been included in at least one of the U20 camps.
Yeah, I continue to be impressed by Ice's ball knowledge. I completely agree with this take with one caveat. Caio, I'll make it quick. He's only here because he's still 21, has his career ahead of him. Only one goal contribution this year in the third Bundesliga. He's a D. For DeTony, I would have him in an A because he was a consistent locked-in starter for Bayern's second team, which, although they play at a very low level, is encouraging for the future. I mean, we've seen so many great Americans come through Bayern recently. Chris Richards was there, Taylor Booth, Malik Tillman as well, and they've all turned out very well. So I think it's encouraging for DeTony. I will just put him in B because of the snub for the U20s. I don't think he's U23 level just yet, but for the U20s, I think it's outrageous the fact that we're about to have our second U20 camp and probably the final one this cycle before the U20 CONCACAF Championships this summer that we will be covering, by the way, guys. So stay tuned for that towards the end of July, early August. But I think the fact that he wasn't in either of those camps is inexcusable. And just for that, I'll put him down in the B.
All right, that's a good reasoning. The 28, he's really good and is at the best places CB could be at his age. Yeah, arguably, this is a good debate. Would you rather be at Jalen Neal's situation where it's not a marvelous LA Galaxy side, but you are playing at the pro level, or playing pro already, but realistically a semi-pro level at a way bigger club, established club in Europe, which has had a good bridge for Americans. We saw recently Taylor Booth, Malik Tillman. It's a good debate right there. But yeah, very, very snubbed by USSF. But anyways, moving on now to the main guys. Some of you guys were asking for the main guys. Here we are. We moved on to Serie A. We're grouping this by league, and Italy has been very kind to our players this year. We're going to start with Captain America himself. In my opinion, has to be S tier. Really, we can pinpoint a few big games here and there that he didn't really do well, but AC Milan were underwhelming in the big games regardless. And this season did exactly what it was supposed to do for CP. He got his aura back, seemed so happy, loved by the fans, and incredible amount of goal contributions. So for me, it has to be S. And what about you, Braden? Do you agree? Do you see an argument for A, or is the maximum grade the just one right here?
Oh yeah, S tier, 100% S tier. What a season Christian Pulisic had for AC Milan, getting 24, 25 goal contributions in all competitions. The one concern that people have had this year, and myself included, was maybe his ability to play against the big teams in big moments. But for his first season, adapting to a new club, a new league, probably the biggest club historically in Italy, one of the biggest in the world. I mean, you see how many Champions Leagues they've won. I think it has to be an S tier. One of their best players and matching the output that Rafael Leão had. And people view him as a world class player. I think in terms of talent, he is that. It has to be an S, and it looks like the chat agrees with me.
Yeah, I mean, not much really for us to extend as tier season for Pulisic. So happy to see him back having a season like this. Now moving on to his teammate Yunus Musah, who I'll be honest, I was a little bit surprised by the move when it happened. Moving on from a very toxic environment in Valencia, getting away from that is a win in itself. But he played a rotational role in AC Milan. I'm not really entirely sure he really developed, improved any areas of his game. Looks very I don't know, I'll just say not refined on the final third. And I'll put his season in C. I can't, but I could see an argument for a higher, but I don't think it can be lower than that. I think if he's playing the long term, the long run game, C is probably fine for Musah so far, and he got good minutes as well. Do you agree, Braden? This one I could see it going to a different grade. So
Yeah, Austin saying, yeah, that was the other downside for Pulisic and for Musah as well. Not winning a trophy for a club as big as Milan, you would be challenging for trophies every season. A bit disappointing that they couldn't win one, especially going outside in the Europa League to Roma. That was a huge disappointment for me. But yeah, Saul's saying C for Yusuf. So just in terms of the fact that Jesse Marsh doesn't know his name, our now rival Canada manager, maybe that would be a low grade, but I'd give him a C. I think it was a good learning experience for him, jumping up to a level that he's probably not good enough for yet. In terms of the final product, I think has been a little bit shocking this year, but he has shown a few nice touches, especially in the middle third. Saying he needs to work on the final third product. Definitely agree with that. But in terms of the middle third, the defensive third, he showed a couple promising moments. I'd give him a C with the caveat that he's such a young player, and if he does stay at Milan for the long haul, I think he could prove to be a pretty important player for them in a couple of years.
yeah, and let me see here. C for Musa, but maybe D since he was a lock in on a roster, but now he's an afterthought. I don't think he's an afterthought. I think he's a rotational player now for the national team, which I always argued from the beginning. It was probably what he was supposed to be, looking at his age. We shouldn't have a guy this young with so much to improve being a lock for our team. I think the fan base caught on to that slowly. I think that it's the natural thing to do. He'll have a great career. Definitely will. He proved that he's overrated. I don't think he's overrated. I think maybe we overrated him because of the lack of options we had. But I think it's fair. C is fair for Musa. And in hindsight, this move can be an A or S tier, if depending on the future. So Pioli's a terrorist. He doesn't know how to use Yusuf. I'm going to say Yunus. And you brought up the AI, the Al Qaeda tactics. Yeah, I kind of agree, Pioli. But I will say, Pioli seemed to have been really nice and kind to Pulisic and restored his confidence. So I'll give him some props for that. But they'll definitely benefit from a better coach next season. Moving on to Weston McKennie, the comeback kid. Honestly, this season, let's just recap a little bit. He didn't even have a locker when he was there at Juventus during the summer, getting rumored to leave. He had a disastrous spell at Leeds, but it did what it was supposed to do. He didn't get good playing time or good performances there, but it reinvigorated some sense of urgency in him, and he had a great season. Now it looks to be maybe on the move again. I'll ask the chat right now: would you guys like to watch him move? And I think the season has to be S tier. He won a trophy as well. So what do you think, Brayden? I think it's S for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think S. I accidentally put him in A here. I'll put him in S, and while I'm talking about him, you can see the S to D list here. As a bit of a recap now, as I think we've hit the halfway point. So thanks to everyone who's sticking with us here. We'll try to make the second half go a little bit quicker since most of the key players are done. But talking about McKennie, I think it's so incredible the motivation and drive he showed this year, beating the lazy and the McDonald's allegations from Leeds fans last season. It was a huge concern towards the end of the year what his future was after that horrible spell with Leeds. And I think rightly so. Juventus wanted to move him on, but props to Allegri. He's a terrorist manager, kind of like Pioli, horrible tactics, but I will give him props. He gave McKennie the chance, and he took that chance and absolutely ran with it. One of the most important players for Juve, whether their fans will admit it or not this season, 10 assists in all competitions. It's just a shame he didn't get that goal. I think Vlahovic stole a couple from him that probably could have been his. He scored one or two offsides ones as well. But I think S 100% is fair for McKennie. And just quickly, Chris Johnson saying, "Where's Miles Robinson?" I said this at the start of the stream, but a lot of you guys probably weren't here, so I think it's a good time to mention this again now. For the MLS and USL guys, all the domestic-based players, we don't have them on here because their season isn't done. And a couple of the lower tier European leagues as well. I believe it's Norway, as well as the main one that has the season still going on right now. The players that are mid-season, we didn't include because this is an end-of-season recap. When I will say, when the season is done, we will be more than happy to have a video or a stream, whatever you guys want, to recap the MLS players and the USL ones, the important ones, how they did this season. But yeah, for now, we're just doing the ones abroad. But yeah, McKennie has to be an S, as Union 2 are flying, by the way. Big, huge team.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Chris, for tuning in. I really, really appreciate that comment. It's a good question to have to clarify for some of you guys that maybe missed the beginning. So thanks for that. It's nice that we had a consensus on Weston, but now we're going to move on to a polarizing one. We're going to move to Buea, who, I'll be honest, I was happy with the move, but I have a very tough time grading his season. I think that his play was okay, but very passive on the ball. Allegri said that he was, I don't know how to translate this from Italian, he was feeling the weight of the jersey a little bit, needed to grow more into the team, into the squad. But he's going to be leaving, so maybe Weah will benefit from that, or maybe not. And Aaron Johansson, shout out to him, a legend. I thought he was going to be the next big thing for us. But yeah, I think for Weah, my grading will be D. Maybe it sounds harsh, but I think that having no position, no real position in a somewhat unstable club, and when a position was there for him it was there for the taking, really. The He had that banger, but the game was decided. But props to him, not taking away from that. But I think ultimately, also with the emergence of Haji, that drops his stock a little bit in terms of USMNT. And I think D for Weah. I love the guy. Back him to have a comeback season next year. He ended the season a lot better than he was for most of it. So that's a good sign. I still back him, but I have him in D. I can't grade it any higher than that with the season that he had.
Yeah, shout out to Aaron Johansson as well. Even past his USMNT days, helping us out with the commitment of Cole Campbell, playing a key role in that. That's going to be huge for the future. And yeah, Finland also midseason. Justin Rennicks, underrated baller. Not for the USMNT level, but he's been having a good season. But yeah, Tim Weah. I think a lot of people in the chat are saying C, and the main point they're saying managed poorly, wasted talent. I don't know if he's a wasted talent necessarily, but I do agree. He's been mismanaged a lot this season. Part of that is on him. He is the one who chose the Juve move, and I think it is understandable. If they're a huge club, you can't turn down a club of that size, especially coming from Lille, where he did win a lot at Lille. He won a lot of trophies, overachieved for the club. but I think it's obvious that he doesn't have a position. And at this point in his career, he needs to be playing in a club where he can play right wing consistently. If that's going to be his role for the national team, at the end of the day, that's what I care about most. He needs to be playing there at club level. So I'm going to give him a D. I understand the C argument. He played a decent amount of minutes, especially towards the end of the season as a bench player for a huge club. So if you want to go based on that, I mean, it's a little bit higher. But in terms of the performances, I thought he was slightly underwhelming. So I'll give him a D.
Yeah, I think that the chat was in between a D or C. I think more shots for a C. I can see an argument for both. As I said, I back Weah. I fully back Weah to have a good season next year. I love the guy. I think he's a good player for us. He always shows up. Even got that assist for the banger for Tyler Adams. But I think D is probably fair. We're going to move on to how dare you, Brandon. You put Gianluca Buzio ahead of Tanner Tessman there. We'll group both of them together. I'm so happy as a Venezia fan. Venezia went up. For those of you guys that don't know, I'm a huge Venezia fan. Really happy. It wasn't pretty. The way the game today was very tough, but I'll just say grading on a season long, I'll put Buzio at, let me see right here. I'll try to be nice. I thought that at times he was a little bit iffy, but towards the end of the season, he stepped up. Last season, he was horrible. So last season was an F. So judging on that, the step up that he had, I'll put him in B. I think that Buzio overall, even though some of his goals and assists were a little bit dodgy, you have to score those or tap ins, and his performances for the U23s are meh. Against France was really bad. I agree with you, Icy. Buzio B and Tessman S, in my opinion. Buzio overrated. Yeah, he is overrated because I think he has that connection with Sporting Kansas City, where he was at the time, I think, the youngest one to sign a pro contract. I think that stayed in a lot of people's minds. But I agree. I think B for Buzio and S for Tanner Tessman. I mean, the guy's the vice captain at the club at such a young age, stepped up last season, helping the relegation battle. Great season for him this year. It remains to be seen if he will stay at Venezia. Towards the end of the game, I wasn't optimistic when I saw the way that he was saying bye to the fans. Bologna director was watching him in the last game. He scored in the playoffs. Double digits for a defensive midfielder is unheard of, really. A Serie B even put the panel, I think we're going to post it, that he has the most impressive stats ever since Verratti, even above Tonali when he was in Serie B. So I don't know if you stay at Venezia, but I think for me, Tasman has to be an S tier. I would like to watch him stay and become a club legend, but he kind of outgrew the club if he's going to leave. Huge props to him. I'll grade it that way as well. I don't know if you agree, Braden.
Similar to you, I would love to see Tessman stay for sentimental reasons. I love the club Venezia. It's a great environment for him to be in, I think. But at the same time, I think it's fair to say he's outgrown the club. And if the manager, Vanoli, does end up leaving, it seems like Bologna and Torino seem to be the top two destinations, not only for Tessman, but also for Vanoli, the manager. I think if he goes with Vanoli to his next club, that would be a huge step up and a necessary one for Tessman, especially if he wants to get himself truly into the USMNT picture. I think that Maloney showed this season, even playing for a lower level top five league team that maybe overachieves, like Maloney did with Heidenheim, like Tessman could do with Venezia. I think that might not get him into the USMNT picture. So moving up to Bologna in particular, who are playing Champions League football next season, would be a huge step up. I'll give Tessman an S, 100%. Definitely, if you look at just the performances, top three player this season for me. When you factor in the level, it moves down a little bit just because Serie B not the highest level when you see some of these players like Jedi in the Prem, Pulisic and McKennie in Serie A. But I'm going to give Tessman an S, and I'm actually going to give Bustio an A. I think it's fair to put him lower, but if you look at a lot of the games this season, I mean, double-digit goal contributions. I think Bustio, in terms of his technical quality, was probably Venezia's third best player behind Tessman and Poyampalo. You can make an argument for a couple others, but I think he was absolutely crucial. And the fact that he was kind of a backup last season, the fact that similar to McKennie, he could have left in the summer as well. He fought, earned his spot back, and became a locked-in starter, a crucial player for them. I think that shows a lot. So I'm going to give him some props since a lot of people in the chat seem to be saying he's a little overrated. It's a fair argument. Bucio sucked against France. I don't know if he was the worst player on the pitch, but he was a little bit underwhelming. I will admit that. But I think for overall season, I'd give him an A. It looks like lots of people are saying B, so I'll put him in the B.
Yeah, I can see the argument for A. I think if we factor in last season where he was last season, I think an A is fair for this year. He did fight back, but again, also the mentality thing. I disagree. I don't think he was the worst one on the pitch. I think Maguire was worse. Henry, but he wasn't good at all. And the mentality thing for Buzio is he had a horrible miss against France and was horrible for the rest of the match. I think the mentality is probably something that differentiates him from other players on reaching their ceiling. And I agree with Tessman being asked. I think great season. Hopefully he stays. But if he moves, it's good on him. I think that he probably deserves a move at this point. But talking now about a player that is involved in the A squad, was a bit injured, left and played against Venezia in the playoffs, was Kristoffer Lund. Good season from him. I think Palermo was a turmoil this year. I mean, they're a turmoil every year, it seems. I backed them to go up in the playoffs. They didn't end up doing so because they faced Venezia. I think they could have reached the final if they're on the other side. But props, good season for Lund. I will say probably a B. If they got promoted an A, I don't know if he would stay or not. I know you have some interesting takes about his future, Braden. So I'll leave most of the discussion on this one for you because I watched a lot of Lund. I think B is fine. Where do you place him?
I'm gonna give myself a little bit of flowers because I was the first one in this whole USMNT YouTube sphere to notice Lund and to call him out as a potential USMNT call up, which ended up happening. Fortunately, I really like him as a player and even as a person. He's such a likable guy, always smiling, brings the vibes, and the fact that he's a good player doesn't hurt as well. So I think a B is very fair for him. Moving to Palermo, his first season there, I think the fact that he adjusted so well, became a locked-in starter for a pretty solid team in Serie B was big. And Ice says here, maybe possibly Hirona City Group link. This is the thing. This is why I want him to stay at Palermo, because I think if he could potentially make a move to Serie A lower level club, it could be nice maybe to see him challenge himself. But if he stays at Palermo and makes himself a huge star there, one of their best players, maybe he could get a move to Hirona. It's unlikely, maybe, possibly, but I think the fact that that possibility exists is enough reason to stay for Palermo. And they are a big club traditionally. I think I back them to continue to fight for promotion. Maybe they'll get back up to Serie A next season. I will say, though, if they don't, he needs to leave next summer. But I think for now, he should probably stay. Henry's saying, is Palermo City Group now? Yes, Palermo is part of City Group. It's a little overlooked because they don't wear the colors and they don't have as much of the link, as much of the publicity as some of the other clubs like Girona, like NYCFC. But yeah, they are part of the City Group. So that's why I'd like to see them stay. I think B is very fair, and I think this is maybe a good time to mention. Let me find the comment here. I'm trying to find it. I think Henry said it. He's taught. Yeah, he said Austin should come on the next live. Dude's funny. Yes, Austin, having you in the chat has definitely been a breath of fresh air. But let us know, guys. Would you want to see us potentially experiment with a call-in show type thing? Pete from 11 Yanks has done that in the past with varying success. There's been some technical issues, but I think it's a good way to interact with the viewers. Maybe after games, because we're going to be streaming a lot of watch-alongs this summer. So maybe immediately after games to have you guys come on and share your thoughts for a little bit. I think it could be a decent idea. Let us know what you guys think about that. But we'll get on to the next player here. I think Lund is a B.
Yeah, and I see George right here. Props to, oh yeah, Braden was the first on the Lund train, definitely. Props to him. And on Tesman, well, thank you. Yeah, I rated him. I was more vocal about rating him before anyone, but I think any Venezia fan would have rated him as well. He always showed he was above the level, in my opinion. So we're happy with these players. I would just say now, while we move on to the next player, since it's an MLS import, Nito Rohr, the president for Venezia, has said in the past, since they got a new injection of cash in the club, which was contingent on them getting promoted, which happened. He said that he will sign a marquee signing from MLS. That was in the plans, allegedly, according to some sources. Who would you guys like to watch Venezia sign from MLS? And watch alongs would be funny because I'll be acting like a joking here when things don't go our way. Well, thank you so much, Austin. Maybe it was a talking show. If you want to participate, if you guys think it's a good idea, let us know. And thank you so much for sticking in for the entire live. And yeah, definitely. Why not overseas call ins? Perfectly fine. and that will definitely stay in the open. Would love to do that. So let us know. You guys seem to like that idea. We'll work hard on implementing that. And yeah, leave on the comments below. Who do you think would be a Venezia signing from MLS? Apparently, it is almost a requirement with the new injection, with the new ownership that is going to co-own the club with the current president. So, and who is American already. So let's watch. Especially if Tesman's leaving, they're going to have to sign probably another American. I'll be curious to see who it is. But anyways, now we move on to another guy that found himself in Serie A. He's promoted. Gioacchini didn't really play a part for Como. They're trying to build a brand there as well. They needed an American. They always posted about him, even though his contribution wasn't really that big. But props to him. The guy knows how to make a move. Honestly, leaving St. Louis after a good season, moving on to Como. I'll be honest, I think that his season overall, if you look at what he did at St. Louis towards the end of the season at Como, it has to be B. I see an argument for A. The guy's going to be in Serie A. Didn't really play, but how do you grade what he did, Braden, on the pitch?
Just quickly talking about the Venezia thing, Tolkien is a huge shout. I think left back, they play a three back or five back system. So left wing back is a position that I think Tolkien could potentially be a good player for. And I think that's probably the main position need for Venezia. So Tolkien would be a big one. Also, Aiden Morris. Now that they are a Serie A club officially, I think Serie B was probably a little too low of a level for him to go to. But if Tessman does leave, Aiden Morris is the backup for Tessman at the Olympics level. He could be the replacement for Tessman at Serie A level. I think he needs to challenge himself somewhere. He's completed MLS. Unfortunately, they ended up losing in the CONCACAF Champions Cup final to Pachuca yesterday, but I think Morris, the time is now for him to move, and maybe if he does next season, he'll be part of this stream. But on to Gioacchini. You could argue A for Serie A, but I would put his season in a D. And the only reason it's not an F is because he did get promoted. He'll be a Serie A player. Complete props to him for picking the move. He was good for St. Louis, like Icy is saying here. He was good for St. Louis when he was playing this season, or I guess last MLS season. But for Como, he's done absolutely nothing. He's played 195 total minutes for them since joining in January. He hasn't really done much. I'll put him in a D. He hasn't had the opportunities to play as much as maybe he would have liked. He's a Serie A player. Props to him, but I think he'll leave in the summer.
Yeah, he'll probably leave during the summer unless they want to keep him for commercial reasons. I would like to watch him get more of a chance, but I don't know. Maybe getting another move to Serie B would be fine. I see someone on the comments saying that Tesman's horrible. I don't know if you're trolling, man. Everyone seems to agree that he's S tier. But moving on now to our next player, I think we're leaving Serie B. We're leaving Italy right now and going on to. Oh no, we still have the Venezia legend Novakovich. I'll just say probably D. D. I'm not going to put F, even though they got relegated horribly, because he did his dues and he still is a Venezia player. He's likely going to get loaned next season to Cosenza, most likely. That's what I see on the rumors. Probably find low Serie B level for him. I'll just be brief about him. I think D because he still got his goals in there, even though he was playing for a horrible squad. Do you agree, Braden?
I'll give him a C, just because I think this, despite the fact that he was playing for the worst team in Serie B, I think it was still an overall decent loan. 6 goals. I think he was their joint highest scorer. I could be wrong about that, but I think overall, as a individual performance, he was okay. So I'll give him a C, but we'll move on. Just quickly addressing some of the chat. USA expat saying send our goalkeeper prospects there. Maybe Hunonen, the goalkeeper for Venezia, is getting up there in age a little bit, but as Icy is saying, they do have Eric Slowakowski. I probably butchered that name, but he did actually just make the bench for the first leg, for the first team, for the first time ever. Lots of firsts there in that sentence, but he's one to watch as well. Polish American from Chicago. Shocker. That seems to be where all the goalkeeper prospects come from, especially the Polish ones. But yeah, one to keep an eye on next season potentially. But yeah, I'd put Novakovich in a C.
Yeah, I think there's a chance that Venezia sells Jeronen as well. So maybe an MLS goalkeeper would be a good option. I'm really curious to see who Venezia will sign. And this is out of pocket, but when people find out about this channel during Copa America, more people will be watching this if we do lives consistently. That's the plan. That's the plan, Austin. We plan on doing that. The call-in show is a great idea. I think that if you guys like that, it'd be really immersive. We would love to do that. And yeah, I think again, huge topic on what's next for some of these players. Now we're going to move on to another A-teamer, polarizing one right here. if we keep doing these lives, the channel could be the best. Oh, thank you very much, Henry. Appreciate the support. Really, really like that. So supportive. That's the plan. Not there. It's a competition, but we'd like to get our names up there a little bit more well known to bring more info as well about some of these players that we don't see much coverage of. But now we're going to go with one of the players that has the most coverage out of anyone, Folarin Balogun. Moved to Monaco. There was a bit of a chance that he would stay at Arsenal. Some people were shouting for that or not. He moved on to Monaco, stayed in Ligue 1, and had a very tough season, in my opinion. Again, honestly, the Coupe de France, missing his pen against the fourth division side. Got some goals here and there, some assists. They weren't really meant to be assists, counted as big misses as well. Overall, adaptations, the way that I can resume this one, I'll probably place it in C. And I think I'm being a little bit kind right here, Brayden. What do you think? Do you think that Ballo deserves a little bit more or not?
Finally, we're getting to a nice run, as you can see in the list of notable players, getting through some of the, less notable ones from Serie B, but we're back with one of the most notable ones now, Balogun. I'd put him in C as well. I think in terms of a first season at a much bigger club with Monaco, he was always going to struggle a little bit just because it's a huge club, it's a huge adjustment to make. But the fact that he was so good with Duane Holmes in the same league the season before, I don't think it can be anything below a C, just because, 8 goals and 5 assists is cool. But like you said, some of the assists were accidental, messed up shots that he had. I think overall his performances were nothing to write home about. Hopefully next season, and I'm banking on this completely, I think he will have a bounce back year next year. I think he'll be huge for Monaco, especially with Ben Yedder leaving in the summer, which is it's going to give him the opportunity now to be a crucial player for them. And especially since they have Champions League football next year, if he can shine on the brightest of stages, you can maybe make the argument that he's back. And I think that he has the opportunity to do that. I think he will do that, but for now, it's going to be a C for me.
All right, let me see. 13 goals and assists, and if he made pens, yeah. I mean, it sucks to put the if he made pens because ideally you should be putting pens away. He missed quite a few. I'll blame it a little bit on Monaco. Why are they still having him on pens? He showed quite early on the season that it's not his best attribute. So yeah, I think overall C, B. I think B is a little bit too high. So I agree with some of you guys. I think that C minus is too much. Expecting a good Copa turning from Ballo. Yeah, expecting that as well because I think he will be starting for us regardless of the season form. I think that Greg will definitely go with him. He could thrive if the system suited him a little bit better. Again, he's so talented on transition, playing off the shoulder of the last defender. But yeah, I think C is probably where we'll have him here. Some people agreed as well in the chat as well. Moving on to staying right here in France, Emmanuel Sabbi had a great run right there at the end of the year, December, January, but honestly, I'll put his season. I could see an argument for B, honestly, because he moved a huge jump up in quality. He was very respectable, played at a very respectable level for a bad team in Le Havre. He probably is going to stay in Ligue 1. So I think that Sabbi is B level, honestly, for me. I didn't have that much expectation. He had some good goals and a lot of fight as well. Very, very tenacious player. Do you agree, Braden? Do you see him lower?
Yeah, I just want to give another shout out to Icy in the chat. My guy, this is my favorite comment here. Where is newly promoted Serie A player Jack Debris? Yes, I considered putting him here, but just because Serie C is such a low level and you can't really watch it, I decided to not put him here. But yes, me and Yuri have kind of a running joke about Jack Debris just because he's a huge Venezia fan. I'm a huge Philadelphia Union fan. He came from that academy. I was really hoping for him to turn out, but maybe he still will, but a bit of an underwhelming stint in Europe so far. But I'd personally put Jack Debris in S. What a player. But moving on to Emmanuel Sabbi, I think I'd put him in B. If you look for the expectations, I'd put him in A. But overall, his form, maybe a C. So average it out to a B. An incredible season, like I said, in terms of the expectations he had, moving from Denmark up to Ligue 1, it's a huge step up. And he kind of adjusted, I think, pretty decently well. 5 goals and an assist in Liga. I think he was their joint top scorer, alongside a couple other players, Andre Ayew, Ghana legend. But yeah, I think it was a good season for Sabbi. And if you had asked me at the start of the season, I think a lot of you guys would agree. I think you as well, Yuri. If you asked me at the start of the year how Sabbi would do, complete flop. I would have predicted him to be a D, maybe even an F. So the fact that he surpassed all expectations, had a respectable year, ended up being crucial to keep them in the league as well. I'd put him up towards a B. And I see saying, can't forget former Venezia legend Patrick Leao. Yeah, and no, Henry, he's not at Venezia anymore. I see saying it in the chat. He moved on to the New England Revolution's second team in MLS Next Pro.
Yeah, I think that he moved there and he's not even playing, which is a little bit disappointing. He was good for Venezia's academy for a while. And just on De Vries, very briefly, I don't know if you've seen it, IC, but there is a deal with Venezia. They owe a little bit of money to Cosenza, and they have signed a partnership. So, and there is the rumor they have to loan 2 players to Cosenza. So maybe Jack De Vries finds himself playing Serie B next year for Cosenza. But I think it'd be a good step up from him. Definitely another challenge right there, stepping up a little bit. But moving on now, I see, wow, Zlicky really doesn't like Test for whatever reason. But we're going to move on to another Dallas FC product right here, talking about Test. Moving on to Ricardo Pepi. I think the first half of the season, I'll probably put it in almost S. I'll put it in A tier. Second half of the season, very sporadic minutes, which is not ideal for a player that could have been the de facto number 9 for us because Balogun had a bit of an underwhelming season. I'll put Pepe's season in a C just because I think it averages out with the great first half, okay kind of second half. So I'll put it in C. I can see this one going in a lot of different directions. Where do you see it, Brenden?
I'm going to put Pepi in a B just because I think he was incredible. Maybe that's a little bit too generous, but he was very good when he played. When he got the minutes, he was good. He just needs more playing time. Like I was saying in the chat, if he had got more minutes, I think it would have been an A, maybe even an S. But he had that iconic moment, the goal against Sevilla to qualify them for the round of 16. A huge moment for Venezia. I have Venezia on the mind. For PSV and for Ricardo Pepi. But yeah, I think if he had more minutes, it would have been higher. But his production in terms of the minutes, I think he had a goal contribution, or at least a goal like every 66 minutes, which is an incredible ratio. If he had kept that up the whole season and gotten more time, it would have been higher. But unfortunately, Luke de Jong is a club icon there now. What a season he had, despite being as old as time itself. Hopefully, Pepi can get an extended run next year. But yeah, I would definitely say Pepi B in terms of the quality. This is an interesting one. I'm curious to see your thoughts on this, Yuri, as well. An FM24 save. That would be interesting.
That would be interesting. I mean, I was a huge FM fan when I was growing up, as any soccer fan. Nowadays, these days I'm married, so I don't have that much time really to play FM. But maybe if you guys really want to see that, I would definitely like that. So, what do you think, Brett? I think it'd be a great initiative. Also, to maybe signing some of these unknown players we have. Let's see what happens. But staying right now in the Netherlands with the PSV boys, Malik Tillman. Honestly, had his first season last year at Rangers, first full pro season, moved up, stepped up to the Eredivisie, did enough on and off the pitch apparently to stay at PSV, got signed there. Some Bayern fans were happy with that, but there's still a buyback clause. So I think it has to be S tier. I can't see it being less than that. And I'm just wishing that he plays in the Olympics. We saw Greg mention that's a possibility. PSV is notoriously very open with their players being released for the Olympics. Hopefully that's the case. He would be integral for that team. I think S tier for Tillman. I can see an argument for less, but do you agree, Brayden?
Yeah, I'd put him in S tier as well. I think he was incredible. Played a crucial part to PSV's amazing season. They had one of the best and most dominant Eredivisie teams of all time. And considering the history that league has, going back to the Cruyff days in the 70s, the fact that this PSV team were up there competing with the likes of those squads, I think is incredible. And the fact that we had 3 Americans, 4 if you count the sporting director, Ernie Stewart, being part of that, is such a nice thing to see, really. It's a breath of fresh air because it's something that I don't think I've ever seen from a USMNT perspective. But Tillman, incredible performances. I think 20 goal contributions in all competitions this season. I think let me pull up his stats real quick to get the accurate numbers. He had 9 goals and 10 assists in the Eredivisie, and then you add in 2 assists in other competitions. And if you add the pens drawn as well, it goes up a lot because he did draw a fair few of pens, including against Dortmund in the round of 16. I still don't think that was a pen on Hummels. Hummels didn't think so either, but doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. S season for Tillman, incredible. And the fact that he keeps adapting to these new clubs every year, the fact that he's still only played now 2 professional seasons and is playing at this level is incredible to me.
It really is incredible. I think that it's fair to put him in S there. We have a select few players there in S tier. I think that it's looking really nice, very encouraging. Moving on to Sergiño Dest, who perhaps could join the A tier, which is a little bit lonely there. Just because the injury is very unfortunate. I think that the season, similar to what happened to McKennie and Pulisic, he had a revival in the career a little bit, going to PSV. Still not the level where I want to see him play. He's one of my favorite players. I think he's the best right back in the world. Jokes aside, I really rate Serge, but the injury doesn't really do him any favors. And now there is the chance, there is a scenario where maybe he tries to fulfill his childhood dream of playing at Barca because Xavi is gone. And we know Xavi is the reason why he was away. So I rank him in A tier. What do you think, Brayden?
Agreed. Yeah, I put him in A. I think in terms of the performances, it's definitely S, but and especially the fact that he came back from 2 bad seasons at Barca and Milan where he wasn't playing as much, and really his career was in danger. This move to PSV, I think, has put him back on track. Unfortunately, the injury at the end of the season, it's not up to him. It's just very unlucky, but I think the fact that he tore his ACL has to move him down a tier for me just because his future is now uncertain again. It's so frustrating because PSV, it was penciled in for that to be his club for the next so many years, unless maybe he got a bigger move after challenging, a bigger move to a more challenging club after putting in Eredivisie Team of the Season performances for another couple of years. But who knows what will happen? I still think there's a very good chance that he could stay at PSV, but maybe they'll get him on a free when his contract expires next summer. But I think it has to be an A just because of the injury and his uncertain future. Austin saying Tillman A. He didn't have the best finishing against Dortmund. That's true. In the biggest performances, I thought his finishing, his end product was lacking a little bit. But overall, for a first season adjustment to PSV, I think he was very good. Austin also saying Dest is an S. That's fair. If you want to put him in S, I have no problems with that.
Yeah, I don't have any problems with it either. I think just the off the pitch stuff is what would keep me putting him in A. But I see the argument for S. I think if he hadn't gotten that injured, it could be an S for sure. Moving on to Taylor Booth, talking about injuries. Here's another player that faced a lot of injuries. I think that he was probably the main player, the creative outlet on that Olympic side. If he had stayed fit, he is included in the latest camp, but ultimately I think his stock dropped a lot from being rumored to Man United, which was never going to happen, to now just being a bit part player at Utrecht. They did manage to do well, and they're going to stay up, so that's good for him. But I have Booth's season going into the D tier right here. Hasn't really done much. Had a great game against his brother, which was funnily enough, but I have him in D tier. Injured way too often. Didn't look that good when he was on the pitch, so D tier for me, which is sad to see. I really rate Booth, and I think he can have a comeback season next year.
I would agree. We haven't had a player in the nice D tier for a while, so I'm gonna put Taylor Booth there. It's not even his fault. He's just been so unlucky with injuries. Like you said, he had a 2-game run where he was very good, including that hat trick that he had against his brother, and then a brace as well in the very next game against Fortuna Sittard. But getting injured again, he missed basically the first half of the season with an injury and got injured immediately after that that 5 goals in 2 games run that he had. So it has to be a D tier for me. And especially the fact when you add in that he did come back at the end of the season and was very underwhelming in Utrecht's final game, that if they had won it, they would have qualified for Europe, but they ended up losing after extra time. He wasn't that great in that game, so I'm going to put him in D tier for this season. But if he didn't have injuries, I mean, we saw it last season as well. He has the potential. He could be a big part in the Olympics this summer, but for this year, a little underwhelming.
Yeah, and I see some funny comments there from Henry. I don't know if it changes his diet or not, Henry, but yeah, D tier nonetheless. Moving on right here to Paxten Aaronson, who joined halfway through the season. Vitesse, a very doomed Vitesse side already at that point, got a crazy points deduction. But I'll speak on his season. I think it was great. He did really well when he was there. Did really well against France as well, which again I'm counting for some of these Olympic players. And I'd put Paxton's season as B, probably. I think it's a nice little adjustment in Europe. Helps him make himself a name there. He has a season now to back himself if he wants another move away, which is likely going to happen. And not at Frankfurt level yet, but show that he belongs in Europe. Did really well there. Would love to see him stay in Eredivisie personally. I think that Bundesliga maybe is too big of a step up at this moment for him to be a regular starter. Where do you see this one, Braden?
I agree. I'll make this one short since we have a lot of players left. I think it's a B. The first half of the season was a little underwhelming. He did get 2 assists in all competitions, one in the Bundesliga, his first ever Bundesliga goal contribution, and one in the DFB Pokal as well. But the loan move was so perfect for him. Unfortunately, Vitesse, the way they went down was very sad to see. But yeah, I think it was such a good loan move on a personal level for him. I think it's pretty clear that he was one of the best, if not the best. I consider him the best player at that club. He was really the only one keeping them even in close to in games, and did so much that if you take away the points deduction, they would have finished not last. They were definitely last when he went there. So the fact that he would have had them improve at least one position in the table shows a lot. He only ended up with 4 goals for Vitesse, but I think he would have had a lot more and more assists as well if his teammates were better quality. A very successful season. Hopefully, he has a slightly better loan move next year to maybe a lower level Bundesliga club, high level Eredivisie club, somewhere where he can go in consistent minutes at the next highest level.
Paxton Aaronson, the better brother. He has that raw talent, hard work. He can become scary. Well, we'll see. There is an argument for that. I think still both brothers need to hit the gym and be a little bit stronger. And honestly, he has a really high ceiling, and I think that next season will be crucial for him. I think it'll be his first breakthrough season, really, and the pro level altogether, because he barely played for. I don't even know if he played for Philly. I don't think he did. Moving on now to Zach Booth. And we can group him with Anthony Fontana, I think, just for the sake of time, perhaps, or because I think that Zach Booth this season, I'll put him in C. A nice little step up right there. Played well for a team that, again, was kind of doomed, but he had a good game against his brother. Again, that was the Booth Derby, and he did well. For Anthony Fontana, he was great against Venezia in preseason, but didn't really play a role for the rest of the season. I don't know where to grade him. Where would you put Fontana, and do you agree with Booth in C?
So for Booth, I think C is fair. His first professional season, good experience for him in a top level league at the Eredivisie. 2 goals, 2 assists for unfortunately the worst team in the league for Volendam. Second worst when you count Vitesse's point difference, but I don't because that's out of their control. Yeah, I think Zach Booth. Henry saying he should have been given a chance with the Olympic team. That's a valid argument. I think I would like to see him in at least one of the camps. Is he at that level yet? Maybe not, especially when you see Taylor being on the fringes now, at definitely a much higher level. But I do think he has the talent and to keep progressing. It'll be interesting to see what Leicester does with him. I think not a lot of people know actually that he is a Leicester player. He was on loan at Volendam. He'll be going there. They'll be in the Prem next season. I don't think he'll stay. I hope he doesn't. Another loan move, maybe back to the Eredivisie to a higher club would be nice. But yeah, I'll give him a C. And for Fontana, he's here just because he is technically an Eredivisie player. He's going to be one of those USMNT streets we'll never forget players in like 10 years' time. Just a random obscure American who played at a decent level, played is generous because he didn't really play at all this season. Union legend as well. Henry saying he has to go, guys. Thank you so much, Henry, for being with us this entire time. I know it's been a long stream, but it's been a great discussion. Great to have you in the chat, and for the rest of you guys as well that have been here the whole time. Huge thank you again. But yeah, C for Booth. I'll give Fontana an F just because he didn't play. And let's move on.
Yeah, he never played. And Justin Che, this guy, maybe another one who at the start of the season would have a shout with the Olympic side, but Didn't really. I think he was all right for ADO Den Haag. One thing I will say, for as fast of a guy as he is, I'm impressed by how many times he gets caught out of position. But I think he's a good player, solid player. All right. I think I'll probably put him in C. But the fact that this move didn't really propel him into any rumors for a better move or any notoriety, really, maybe could be a D season. I don't really know. Where would you rate this one, Braden?
So if we were gonna rank his transfer at the in the summer where he moved to Brondby and then immediately got loaned out, it would have been a D or an F. But I think he was great this season. Unfortunately, did get injured towards the end of it, which kind of slowed the momentum of Ado Den Haag and his season, of course, as well. I'd give him a B for his performances. I thought he was pretty solid, one of the better right backs in the league, albeit at a lower level in the second tier of the Netherlands, the Eredivisie. But I'll give him a B on his performances.
Yeah, that's fair as well. Props to him for having played at that level. Now we're gonna move on to Zellerland, who could have been one of the greats for the U.S. Never really panned out, but had a bit of a revival season as well. Again, struggled a little bit with injuries, but that's the theme of his career, really. So I'll put him in C. I think just fine at the C level. What do you think?
Yeah, Zelalem, a C is very fair. He had a pretty decent season, I think overall, but nothing spectacular. Put him at a C and move on to the next two guys who actually play at the same club.
Yeah, we can group them together. I will be honest, didn't really watch them, Braden, so I'll have to pass this one to you. Where would you rate their seasons? Do you think they have any prospects of being involved with the USMNT in any capacity?
Tough one to say. Hilton is a little bit hard done by just because of all of the outbreak of left backs that we had that we alluded to earlier in the stream. I think he's a very solid player. In terms of his season, I'd actually put him up towards a B. I think he was very solid. Ostundina, I put him at a C. His first professional season in Europe, he was playing for Orange County before that. He's on loan from Feyenoord. He has a lot of high potential. I don't know if either of these guys are USMNT quality at any point, but a good season for them at Dordrecht, if you guys didn't know, in the Eredivisie. And yeah, I think I'll put Oosendin at a C, put Hilton at a B, and sure, yeah, we'll skip ahead to the Belgian guys. I'll put quickly Anello. We'll put him in D. Didn't play a lot, got injured. We'll move on to the Belgian league.
Yeah, I think we can start with Slonina. I know that Gus said right there to do Mackenzie, Reynolds, but I think that Slonina deserves a rating right here. He's a big name. He's going to be a big part of the USMNT likely in the future. But for the sake of time, I know this has been really extensive, guys. We'll speed through some of these guys that realistically didn't really do anything notorious. Slonina, I see his season as a I'll put him in B. I'll put it in B just because he got the opportunity to play at the pro level, which is better than academy. Did his part really, but I won't put it in A or S because ultimately they got relegated. His position to be the starter for the Olympic side is kind of he's in a battle right now with Schulte because Schulte is stepped up. So I'll put him in B. Do you agree, Braden?
Yeah, I think B is fair. This is a one that could go a whole variety of ways. I think Slanina had the valuable experience this season. He got a lot of reps, as we've been saying all year. So many shots on goal because their defense, Westerlo, was horrible. Gus saying C, I think that's fair as well. I think just in terms of the fact that I think this season for experience was so valuable for him, his first professional one in Europe. So I'll give him a B. I think he was probably Eupen's best player. I said Westerlo. I don't know why I said Westerlo. I guess Reynolds and Yao were on my minds. But yeah, I think he was Eupen's best player. Their defense was shocking. Got good experience. Hopefully next season he can go to Strasbourg. That's what I'm banking on. Chelsea's affiliate club. He obviously is a Chelsea player and play at a level where the performances matter a little bit more.
Okay, and now moving on right here to Mark McKenzie, which Gus had requested a big name. He's going to be involved in Copa America. We don't know if he's going to play. I think that he might. He just might. Probably battling out with Miles Robinson there for a spot in the starting lineup or the bench. But I'm going to put McKenzie's season as a B. I don't think it's quite an A because I think the club kind of underwhelmed. And he had one bad match that I watched against Club Brugge where I thought he cost him in the goal. Still very fast, very good defender, but definitely needs to step up a level. I think that will likely happen. I think he captained the side on his last game, which is fine. And let me see, not to brag, but Olympiacos had McKenzie on lock for the Europa League qualifications round. But yeah, he had a great season. I think that B is fine. As I said, I agree with you, Austin, and props to Olympiacos. You guys really did deserve that title. So completely understandable flexing there. Props, and it would be nice to see some USMNT player from this list at Olympiacos next season. I'll definitely tune in a lot more for them, and a great fan base. So you deserve the best. I'll put Mark's season as a B. Do you agree, Braden? Do you think it could be an A just because of the Premier League interest that he gathered?
I am going to put him in a B. I think it was a very solid season for him, but it is time for him to leave. And just looking at these players that we have in the B tier, I think we've done Chris Richards very hard done by. I'm going to move him up to A just based on his performances towards the second half of the season. Yeah, we'll put McKenzie in B. And like you said, Gus, I think it is a good idea since we're running a little bit not short on time, but it's been a long stream. We'll move on to the last relevant guys. We'll finish out Belgium, and then we'll move to CCV, Pukstas, the Liga MX guys.
Yeah.
And then for the rest of them, we'll do a quick rapid fire towards the end and then call it a day. And I think this is a good time to mention with you, some of you guys heading out. Thank you again for tuning into the stream so far. We will be putting timestamps on this. So if you guys ever want to come back to this, it'll be up as a video. I'll put timestamps in for all the players. It'll probably take a while, but I think it's worth it. So if you guys ever want to watch this back as a full video and skip to a specific player, you can. But yeah, McKenzie, we'll put him at a B.
Yeah, and also we can put a full list of where we graded each player at the end of this in the comments, so you guys can look back, refer to. And yeah, I agree with bumping up Richards, looking at the players and the caliber of players we put in the B level. Now moving on to guys that's earlier in the stream were mentioned, Reynolds and Yao. I would personally put Reynolds' season, even though I didn't think he was great, I'll put his season in B because he got the interest from a lot of clubs. I can see Yao's season being an S, honestly. I'll put it in A. I'll put it in A. For now, I thought he, in one camp with the U23s, he solidified himself as probably the best option in the wings, scored a big goal against France, seems to be a really, really tenacious kid with a good head on his shoulders, bounced back and can be pointed to as the reason why they stayed up. So Yao, for me, A, perhaps S, but I'll put A just because the first half of the season he didn't have much of a chance. Granted, he did change their season when he was given a chance, but for Reynolds, I'll put B. Do you agree, Braden? Do you think I'm being harsh on Reynolds? I can definitely see that.
I'm going to give them both an A. I thought they were both pretty crucial players to Westerlo's season, although I can see the argument for B for Reynolds. He lacked the end product at times that he's shown in the past. And I think overall, Yao definitely had a better season and a huge surprise one. His big breakout, I don't think anyone would have seen this coming. And if you did, huge props to you. Immediately cementing himself as probably a locked-in starter for the Olympic team. I don't think he was even on the radar to begin the season. I mean, we saw that the first camp he made was the last camp before this summer. Now he's part of the June roster. He'll probably be part of the roster for the Olympics in Paris. And Gus saying Yao is filthy, A. I definitely agree with that. I think he 100% has to be an A. Huge underrated player, underrated season. Reynolds C, he wasn't good against France. That is true. He wasn't great against France, but overall as a season, I'll give him a B, I think.
I think B is fair. And I'll say that Reynolds wasn't great against France, but he was going up against a level that he's not very used to in Belgium at Westerlo. And he was good going forward against France. I'm not his biggest fan, but he was good with the crosses. If Maguire had a good game, Reynolds could have had at least one assist that day. So I think B is fine. B is fine for Reynolds. Moving on right here to, well, do you want to quickly grade? We can skip through right here. Fossey, I'll put his season in a C. I faced some injuries. Cave, I think C is fine as well because he got good numbers, first pro season, but ultimately nothing to set the world alight. Do you agree with these ones?
Yeah, C for both of them. And if for some reason some of you guys in the chat or in the comments watching this back want us to go further in depth on some of these guys, since we are running out of time a little bit, we're going to make it a little bit shorter. But if you guys want a full explanation, we will be more than happy to do that in the comments for you. But yeah, we'll move them both on to C and move on to Cameron Carter-Vickers.
Yeah, and CCV, honestly, I will give him, I know this is going to be harsh. I will give him a C as well, because just staying at Celtic, in my opinion, and having the mindset to stay there, I think is just as big of a sideways move as Miles Robinson staying in MLS. He didn't look good when they were playing in the Champions League. He actually cost them in one of the games. I'm somewhat of a big fan of CCV. I like him. I have belief in him, but I don't think that he played that well this season. I think Scottish Premiership is worse than MLS. It's worse than some second divisions as well that we saw earlier in this rank. So I'll honestly put him in C. I think that it's he needs to get a move, and he's likely going to stay. So for me, should get as much critique as Miles. Do you agree, Braden?
I think I've been the biggest CCV hater, if you will. I've been quite vocal about my criticisms on him, but even I think you're being a little too harsh. I think if we're just grading it based on the season they had, I think it has to be an A. He won the domestic double, was probably one of their best players. I think undisputedly their best defender in Scotland. Had a couple injury issues, wasn't great in the Champions League, but that's to be expected for the level he's playing at. And we have to mention Dest defensively wasn't great in the Champions League either. He had a lot of offensive skills and tricks that got him on the highlight reels. But I think that concern also exists for players like that. So I'm going to give CCV an A, but based on a season, and it looks like Gus agrees with me in the comments, saying he was great for Celtic and their next USMNT starter. I will say, if he's starting for the USMNT, that shows that the center back position is a huge area of concern. But I would probably prefer him to Miles Robinson as of now. So who knows? Maybe. I think CCV at an A is fair.
Yeah, I think that that's just fair. Moving on right here to Rokas Pukstas, who was one of the ones that Gus had requested us to do. Like you said, we're gonna just do the next relevant guys right here. Pukstas, I'll put his season in a B, and the reason why I don't put it in A or S, even though he did well, is because well, they didn't win the title, which was honestly something they should have battled for a little bit more, and also he missed out on the U23's camps, which really hurts him. And I don't think that he was all that good in some of the big games that I watched him. So I like Buxtas. I think that he showed me he has more versatility in his locker than I expected. I think he's equally good going forward or defensively, kind of a box to box. But I'll put his season in B. Still so young, but definitely got hurt by those call-ups that he couldn't get to with the Olympics.
I agree with B. And I think in terms of his quality of play, I think 8 goals on the season, I'd give him an A. But just the fact that he wasn't released for a couple of the U23 camps, he is finally there now in June. Hopefully he does enough to get himself into the Olympics because I think in terms of talent, he deserves to be there in Paris this summer. But if he ends up missing out, that's a huge mistake, a huge cost for him. Hopefully he gets a move to a bigger club this summer. We'll see how that pans out. But I think a B is fair. And Gus saying, heading out, guys, thanks again for the video. Yeah, thank you, Gus. And for everyone else who's been staying for this long, thank you guys for coming out for the stream. We're probably about to wrap up soon, just getting through these last couple of players. But thank you to everyone who's been here interacting with us in the chat. It's been super fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. I don't know if he left already, but thank you so much, guys. Thank you for everyone that's still watching. We really, really appreciate it. We know it's a little bit long, but again, it's I think it's our first live stream that it's not a game, so learning as we go. But we really, really appreciate all of the support. Really happy with that. Now we're gonna move on to the last ones right here, the Liga MX guys. I'm gonna put Zendeja's season. I could see it being an A, honestly, but I'll put it in B just because of the level. And I think that even though he's had a good season, he's probably way more down in the pecking order for the USMT than he was at one point. And I think that Gold Cup really hurt him with the USSF. So I'll put him in B. For Vasquez, I don't really know where to rank him, to be honest. I think C. I think it started really hot, but it kind of died down a little bit. And he's not going to move to Europe. And for Cowell, I'm just going to say D and not an F because he did well against France. That's it, because he's not been good for Chivas in my opinion. But I still back him to do something in his career. He definitely has the will and the physicality to do so. Do you agree, Braden? Where would you rate these three guys?
Cowell, I completely agree. A D. If he wasn't decent off the bench against France, it probably would have been an F. He's gotten a few chances in against that one Canadian team. I don't remember their name. I think it was Forge FC. In the CONCACAF Champions Cup, he was pretty good as well. So one good game. We'll put him in D. For the other guys, I'm gonna put Zendejas in A. I think his season was very comparable to Yao. I think arguably he had a better performance. Now that gets to the debate whether Liga MX or the Belgian Pro League is better. It's tough to say. I think I'd go for Belgium, but I think the Liga MX fans probably have an argument as well. There, probably one of the best leagues in definitely the best in North America. maybe second or third best in all of the Americas combined, behind Brazil and maybe Argentina. I'll put Zendejas in A. I think he had an incredible season, was crucial to Club America, winning both versions of Liga MX, Clausura and Apertura. So I'll put him there. And Vasquez, I think I'll give him a B. I think just the fact that he started out so hot moves him up a little bit. But yeah, it's been a little bit underwhelming as of recently.
Yeah, and it's I think Monterrey were really underwhelming. They could have won this Conca Championship, in my opinion. I think they had the squad to do so, but they faltered. And yeah, I think this is where we wrap up. I know that there are still some guys left here, but realistically, they're not really in the USMNT picture. I like to keep up with some of them, but unfortunately, we're kind of short on time. Not short on time, but it has been a really long live. We really appreciate all of you guys that tuned in. Really, really appreciate all of the super chats as well. So thankful for that. I'm gonna let Brenden do think on his side as well, and then we'll do the closure on the video.
Yeah, like you said, I think this has been a super fun stream, and let us know if you guys are watching this back. Let us know in the comments what you thought about our ratings. There's been a lot of them, so I'll just quickly scroll through the list so you can see as a final result. Ignore these players. You can let us know your opinions on them in the comments as well if you want, but I don't think any of them are too relevant in the grand scheme of things, hence why we left them out in the end. But you can see S tier here with a lot of key players, really. A tier, B, C, D, and we'll move down to show you the F tier players as well. But yeah, thank you guys for all coming out. There's been a bunch of you who have been in the chat the entire time, which is crazy. Over 2.5 hours, an incredible experience for us to be streaming this. And like you already said, this was our first stream that wasn't a live watch along. We will be doing a lot of those this summer for Euros games, Copa America games, Olympics games. We'll be covering U20s as well, and so many videos. And we also mentioned if you guys want to see us do a potential call-in show at some point, other things, let us know in the comments, ideas for future content. But thank you to everyone, can't emphasize this enough, who's been part of the stream for these 2.5 hours or so. And yeah, we'll see how these players do next season, perform in the summer. But thank you guys so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much. Again, Austin mentioned something that Kyle had the option to go to Europe since we were closing the video, and he was one of the last ones. I think that maybe he should have gone. I think that bridge to Europe is a lot harder to get to once you're at Chivas and Liga MX in general. So maybe. But thank you so much. Thank you, Austin. Thank you, George, all of the guys that already left. But we really, really appreciate it. We love doing this stream. So it's definitely something to look forward to in the future. And stay tuned. We're going to be in the works to have the call-in show. That's something that you guys seem to like. You can look at the screen right now, but it'll also be on the comments and the timestamps as well, as Brenden said. We know it would be tough, but we appreciate the hard work, Brenden. We thank you so much. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.